Hey y'all, welcome back. My name's Katie, this is Dark Side of the Truth, and we're now friends.
Did we just become best friends? Yep!
If you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that bell, because on this channel, we don't just skim headlines, we break things down properly. And today, we're talking all about the Epstein files. As of early 2026, the Department of Justice has publicly released over 3.5 million pages connected to Epstein and related investigations. Now, I need you to really hear that number. 3.5 million pages. That includes federal court filings, civil depositions, internal investigative reports, emails, audio files, financial records, images, and thousands of videos, all logged as evidence. This is not by any means a small update, and this is definitely not a headline recap. This, my friends, is one of the largest document disclosures tied to a criminal network in modern United States history. Now, let me be very clear about something before we go any further. Due to the massive document dump that the DOJ just decided to dump in all of our laps, I have not personally read all 3.5 million pages. I'm never gonna lie to you guys, so I'm just gonna tell you straight up. I haven't. I don't think anyone has. That would be damn near impossible, at least in this short of a time frame since it's been released, unless you dedicated nothing else in your daily life but to reading these documents day in and day out. There's just too much that has been released and that isn't titled or filed correctly or, anything with anything that it belongs with. It's all just scattered in there crazily. Nothing's titled, nothing's labeled. There's just no way for us to even know what we're looking at, really. It just is up to each person who's diving into these files to kind of decipher them as they can and as they will and, what they make sense of it. And then, mark my words, 3 to 5 years from now, or maybe it won't even take that long, the DOJ or, media members will come out and say, oh, look at these internet sleuths that just, decided to interpret these files any way that they wanted. Man, they're such fools. They had no clue what they were talking about. Yeah, well, maybe if you guys had given us some help, we would know. Maybe if you had labeled something or filed things properly and categorized stuff. No, of course not. So now it's up to us. But mark my words, I'm betting any money we'll hear that very soon. Now, like I said, I haven't read all 3.5 million pages. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I never would. So I just haven't. I'm gonna tell you straight up. What I have done though, is go through verified filings, unsealed exhibits, court documents, police records, and I cross-reference those with public archives and other researchers who are digging into this material full time. Now, when I cite something that comes directly from a verified court filing or something that I personally found myself while diving directly into these files, I am going to tell you that. If something is circulating online, but I have not necessarily confirmed it in an official filing, but that creator says that they did, I am also going to say that too. But I will let you know, this comes from online, this comes from what I actually found in the files. I will make it very clear what source each, information comes from. And as always, any sources that I use to get my information for this video will be cited in the description of this video. The material in these documents is beyond disturbing. We're talking about the exploitation of minors, SA, coercion, and allegations that are extremely difficult to even process and hear. Now, if any of that sounds like it's too heavy for you right now, please skip this video. Protect your peace, there's no judgment here, you're not gonna offend me at all, and I'll catch you in the next one. But if you're here to understand what was actually released, and what it does and does not prove, then let's get into it. Now, to keep this discussion YouTube safe while still being accurate, I will be coding certain terms when necessary. Now, I will do my best to give these, coded terms, the closest accurate representation to the word that I'm talking about. So you can keep up at home with what I'm talking about. And I will make sure to explain context as clearly as I can as we go. Before we go any further, there is something very important that I need to address. The internet right now is flooded with screenshots of alleged leaked clips. Now, apparently, according to claims that I have seen, some of this material may be AI generated. Yet some creators are still claiming that this AI generated material is like part of this like document release. If a document that I mentioned in this like video does not list a case number, a filing date, an exhibit label, or a court source, treat it with the utmost skepticism. I'm going to do my best to make sure I don't include any of these AI clips in this video, but I can't guarantee that I won't, because like this AI is getting damn good, okay? So I'm going to like cite everything that I can, but if I share a video from online, I will let you know it is online. And I just wanted to forewarn you that allegedly there is some AI generated material regarding these files circulating online pretty heavily right now. Now, that doesn't mean that everything that we see is like AI generated and fake, because absolutely every document that we're going over in this video came directly from the files and my research into the files. So there is definitely like true information out there. I just wanted, like, in honor of full transparency, to let you know that allegedly there is some AI material circulating online. But we in this video are focusing on verified filings first. The rumors will come second. One last thing, and then I promise we'll get started, just to like cover my ass because this is super sensitive material. This video discusses publicly reported allegations, court records, and media coverage related to the Epstein case. However, many of the claims, accusations, and names referenced in those documents remain as nothing more than allegations, because at this point in time, as of like filming this video, they have not yet been proven in a court of law. This video is not at all making legal claims or accusations of any kind. The goal here is simply to examine what has been reported, what appears in the documents, and the conversations that have been forming around them. Any and all mentions of individuals in this video does not automatically imply guilt or any wrongdoing. All individuals referenced are presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. This content is for informational and commentary purposes only. Viewer discretion is 1,000,000% advised. And like I said, if this is too touchy for you, please turn the video off and I'll catch you in the next one. Now, with that being said, we can officially get started. Roll the intro.
They live, we sleep, the alarm's going off, beep beep. Time to wake up to the deceit. All reality's made up by the elite.
So before we get into the allegations or like the darkest parts of this, we need to understand the power dynamics that were at play. Because this wasn't just like some random isolated acts of abuse. It felt like a well-oiled machine built entirely on leverage and control. Allegations from the files and testimony point to sophisticated surveillance setups at Epstein's properties. Now we're talking like cameras hidden everywhere, capturing moments that could absolutely ruin lives if they ever came out and were seen by the public. Sworn testimony from victims and even some staff members describe rooms that were, quote, wired up. And not just for basic security, but specifically to record compromising situations with quote unquote, elite individuals. But you already know they're the deletes here. So that's what we're going to call them from this point forward, just like I always do. Picture Little St. James. We all know that infamous little island. It was loaded with technology. I'm talking drones overhead, cameras in every freaking corner, eyes on everything. One housekeeper even testified about seeing banks of monitors in control rooms with live feeds from guest areas.
A lot of people, a lot of blackmail videos and pictures. If you look here, the limestone, inside the house, behind a space like that, they have cameras and they have them everywhere. Jeffrey took me to a room which is a little bit back further than this window, and it's leaded, and it had all the computers and all these monitors, like the old-fashioned TV monitors, stacked.
I'm looking at the monitors and I'm like, that's my room, that's the massage room, that's my shower, that's my toilet, that's everyone else's toilet in the house, that's everyone else's shower in the house, that's every single corner of that house was monitored. He was watching everybody all the time. This was a blackmail scheme. All those powerful people abusing underage girls. When he told me people owe me favors and I will never get caught, I can get away with things, he meant it.
The allegation behind this footage is that this footage, of course, turned into straight up ammunition. or like blackmail material to keep the powerful in line or to like extract favors from them down the road, or, to push like Epstein's own career further. Now, I know what you're thinking, like cameras set up strictly for blackmail of like high-ranking officials. That sounds crazy, Katie. And like, yeah, maybe, to be fair, sure, to me and you, us like regular folks, yeah, that does sound crazy because like we don't do shit like that. But in these elite circles, allegedly, now I'm not in them, so I don't know for sure, but allegedly, blackmail isn't like a rare thing. It's basically another form of currency. Theories have swirled online for years that Epstein would supply whatever people craved, or like, whatever their preference was, whether that be underage girls, rugs, like whatever their particular poison was. Like he would supply it right then and there, right there at those parties. And then everything was like also being taped at those parties because he had cameras everywhere. And if you didn't play ball or cooperate with him after these parties ended, he would dangle the dirt over your head. But if you did go along with it, you were like essentially owned, right? He would own you forever then. High-ranking officials, business tycoons, and even royalty are all allegedly caught on camera in illegal acts, sometimes even involving minors. Emails also list preferences right next to names. Like allegedly, B Gates / babies, or teens, young girls, young boys, whatever. Now, we don't really know if it was like, the high-ranking official or the person whose name is there next to their preference. We don't know if they were like actually telling Epstein like, hey, this is my preference, or if Epstein's team was just like doing research into them and this is what they decided or like they thought would be each person's like, preferred preference or whatever. We don't really know. But either way, in my opinion, it's sick. But allegedly in this like document release, there are emails that show, list of names right next to preferences. However, the source remains unclear, alleged, and not proven. I want to make that very clear. This is all just like internet theories because, like I said, we were left to interpret these documents basically to the best of our ability because they didn't organize, categorize, label, title, nothing. They didn't care. They were just like, here you go. Now, all of these interpretations, they are straight up internet theories with no court verification. Let me make that like stupid clear. Speculation goes further to say that this whole web allowed him to launder money internationally, possibly even tied to rug trafficking, and definitely, allegedly, of course, involving like trafficking and minor trafficking. Now, there's no hard proof inside these documents for like the rug side, but the filings do allege an organized operation that moved girls, keyword there, girls, around like commodities, with payments hidden behind shell companies. So Epstein's world allegedly boiled down to this. If you weren't already seeking it out voluntarily, then he would seek you out because of like your power, money, or wealth. He would figure out what made you tick, what like fetishes you had or what preferences you had. And then he would supply it, whether that be, like I said, underage girls, rugs, whatever. It was like a pick your poison type of thing. And he was the supplier. Then he'd get the pictures and like videos from his surveillance system showing high-ranking people engaging in illegal activities. As I said, sometimes with underage girls, and then basically he would own them through blackmail. He'd let them know that their dirt existed, and suddenly he was king. He owned everybody. And the people who got caught from his surveillance system, well, they turned around and used him right back, trading like influence. At least that's the theory. Mutual exploitation in this like shadowy economy of the ultra rich. But let me be very clear about something. While the surveillance allegations do come straight from like sworn testimony, the full blackmail scheme, that's more like in the realm of speculation or conspiracy theories that's been pieced together from patterns in the filings. Now, and this is very important, a document being released does not automatically confirm every claim made inside of it. Some documents are just like investigative notes. Some are unverified tips, some are sworn testimony, and some are allegations that were never fully prosecuted. Transparency gives us access, but it does not give us any instant verdicts. But what it does give us is a pattern. When you step back and look at millions of pages side by side, those patterns become very difficult to ignore. We have pictures released in these files that show a lot of people forcing themselves on young girls, very young. We have pictures of babies. We have pictures of a girl who appears to be 7 or 8 when the picture was taken. Allegedly, people were sending in photos hoping that Jeffrey Epstein will quote unquote take them. We're talking orphanages, reaching out to Epstein and his team. Allegedly, even parents were sending in photos of their own children, hoping that they would be Epstein's quote unquote type and they would be chosen. Because while their kid would suffer, the parent would get insane opportunities to rub elbows and become involved with some of the world's most powerful elites. So allegedly, in some sick parents' minds, the innocence of their children was apparently a cost that was worth paying. At least to them. It's so beyond sick, y'all. And let me just let you know, we're also talking about our kids and me and you, anybody who went to public schools. Yes, you heard me right. Anyone who's ever attended public school and had their picture taken on picture day. Epstein has also seen your picture. Allegedly, of course. Because the company, quote, Lifetouch, I'm sure you guys know what company that is, but they're named in the files. And if you don't know what company that is, it's the big company that goes around to all the public schools taking the kids' pictures on picture day. They're the one that goes to every single school. Every year I have my picture taken by Lifetouch. I'm sure you did too. Now, allegedly, Lifetouch is accused of compiling every picture that they ever took of public school children on picture day. They would use these pictures to, of course, make the yearbooks. But then they were not only sending a copy of every yearbook to the parents of the kids who ordered and paid for a copy, but allegedly, according to these documents, Lifetouch was also sending a copy of each yearbook back to the Epstein estate. And this was after, mind you, he was already publicly convicted of being an S offender in 2008. Allegedly. Lifetouch was allegedly sending him these yearbooks after that. Now, why were they doing this? And what were they using these yearbooks for once they sent them back to the Epstein estate? Well, in these documents, we also have allegations of Epstein trying to make the quote unquote perfect gene because he wanted to create his superior group or race of people. He had Harvard, Princeton, and UCLA doctors who, mind you, are still in practice today, caught in these documents, emailing Epstein and helping him come up with a realistic plan on how he could go about creating this quote unquote super race of humans.
Epstein is talking about he wants everyone in the world to have his DNA. He didn't say I want every woman in the world to have my baby. He said I want everyone in the world to have my DNA. And he's working with and communicating with the people that are making the RNA. And he's talking about utilizing that as a delivery system with some of his own DNA. It's quite possible, after me reading that everyone that has gotten that Jabberwowski is walking around with Epstein's DNA in their body. If he was successful, there are millions of people walking around with some of his genetic code inside of them so that he can live on forever through everyone else. This is narcissism 10x.
Jeffrey Epstein was reportedly obsessed with improving the human race and even had plans to seed the human race with his own DNA. He had an alleged fixation on eugenics, race ideas, as well as something called transhumanism, where genetics and AI are used to create better humans. Released emails reveal Epstein donated millions to researchers in the bid to create designer babies with blue eyes, a trait he believed indicated intelligence. In a 2019 investigation by the New York Times, it was reported that just before his Epstein had plans to use his New Mexico ranch to impregnate 20 women with his good genes, spreading his seed.
What? This shit is sick, yo. Allegedly, Epstein's seed is still somewhere in a cryo chamber. And as lately as of last year, 2025, we allegedly have documented proof that his seed is still currently being paid for. The embryos that he apparently left at the cryo clinic are still currently being stored there, and an anonymous person or persons have been paying the bill monthly to keep his seed there. Like, why? Epstein's gone, right? Why do you need to keep his seed there? It's a little weird. And like, what was his, preferred race or his like superior race? Like, what were they? What do they look like? What were they going to be? I'm so curious. I would love to know. So remember how I was saying that Lifetouch was collecting every picture and like yearbook that they made of every public school kid, and not only sending them to the parents of said kid who ordered those yearbooks, but also sending a copy of every yearbook they ever made back to the Epstein estate, allegedly anyway. Remember how we were talking about that? Well, now let's get into the why they may have been doing that, at least in my opinion. What if it was like a human menu for Epstein? So he could go through this catalog of very young people and selectively choose and target people based on certain physical features that each person had, because he was trying to create his superior race of people. So these yearbooks, in my opinion, could have been like a human menu of sorts, at least for Epstein. So Lifetouch, I see you. Secretly sending pictures of every child in the country to a known pedo? Like, what? Like, you know how many more pictures that this Lifetouch company has taken of our children at public school since like they were convicted of sending, or, since they were found out to be sending these yearbooks to Epstein? Like, what the fuck is life? And how, did we not know about any of this before now? Now, let's talk about the Gates connection for a minute, because this is one of those areas where people either oversimplify it or completely run wild with speculation. And neither approach is really necessarily helpful. So let me tell you what we actually know. In these emails, there's communications between B. Gates and Jeffrey Epstein that allegedly reference meetings or discussions about philanthropic projects, financial topics, and even sensitive medical conversations, including payments or arrangements involving STI medications. So sexually transmitted infection medications, where B. Gates is allegedly reaching out to Epstein, asking for, STI medications that he can secretly give to his wife, Melinda, meaning he didn't contract said STI from Melinda. Little suspicious, if you ask me. And then it's I got to sneak it to Melinda because I can't tell her how I got it. I don't know. Do with that information what you will, but I thought it was a little sus. Gates himself has acknowledged that meeting with Epstein was a mistake, and he said that he regrets the association.
Actually true that I was only at dinners, I never went to the island, I never met any women, and so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior.
Importantly, and this is critical to state very clearly, there have been no criminal charges filed against B. Gates related to Epstein. The document connection is meetings and philanthropic discussions. That, my friends, is what's been verified. Where this gets more layered is when you bring in Melinda Gates, his wife. And that's because she herself has publicly addressed this. In interviews following her recent divorce from her husband, B. Gates, she stated that she met Epstein once and found him, in her words, abhorrent. She also said she had concerns about her husband's continued meetings with him, and she described Epstein as quote-unquote evil personified. She said that she met him once and was uberly creeped out by the guy, and she continuously begged her husband, B. Gates, to stop hanging out with him. And she personally said that that is part of the reason why they decided to get divorced, is because he wouldn't stop hanging out with him, and he gave her the creep so much. She got the ick from him and was I don't know what it is about this guy, but he's creepy. That's a woman's intuition for you. Let me just say that. Now, since their public divorce, Melinda has expressed sympathy for Epstein's victims and made it very clear that she was uncomfortable with the association, between the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Epstein from the very start.
I have to acknowledge the elephant in the room at this moment. Your ex-husband, Bill, is named in the newest tranche of Epstein files.
Yep.
And there are a new alleged details about his past behavior. And I want to give you the opportunity to respond in whatever way you want to.
Well, let me say this. I think we're having a reckoning as a society, right? No girl should ever be put in the situation that they were put in by Epstein and whatever was going on with all of the various people around him. No girl. I mean, it's beyond heartbreaking, right? I remember being those ages those girls were. I remember my daughters being those ages, right? So for me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me. And I am so happy to be away from all the muck that was there.
I have to put more words to the muck for context for our listeners. The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior, but I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. And so it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life. And I hope there's some justice for those now women, right? We see them standing up in front of microphones in DC. What they went through is just unimaginable, I think.
Now, here is why the timeline and that information that I told you to shelf, that B. Gates and, Epstein originally met and started working together in 2011 matters so much. Some people think that Epstein only became publicly known as a predator in 2019 when he was arrested again. But that, my friends, is not accurate. Back in 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty in Florida to charges related to the solicitation of a minor and procuring that minor for prostitution. As part of his plea deal, he served about 13 months in a work release program and then was required to register as an S offender. By 2008, he was publicly labeled as a convicted S offender involving minors. That wasn't hidden. Well, okay, so to be fair, let me just tell you the whole story here real quick. I'll sum it up quickly. It was known. He did get convicted in 2008, okay? But the media was doing their damnedest to cover it up, okay? And so was Epstein. He was paying people to keep the story hush hush. So not very many people of the public knew that he was a convicted S offender in 2008. Many of us didn't find out later until right around 2019 when he was arrested. That's when it came out to the public, okay? But anybody in high up government circles, media members, anybody with power or influence, anything like that, they would have known that he was convicted and publicly charged and had to register as an S offender in 2008. Okay, so while me and you may not have necessarily known that Jeffrey Epstein is a fucking creep until 2018 or 2019, that's not the case for D-elite members or government officials or media members or, you know what I'm saying? Anybody with official capacity or power or authority or anything like that, they knew that he was convicted in 2008. It was just being pushed and actively trying to be hidden from the public then, okay? But anybody in government office or anybody with an official title, they knew that he was a convicted S offender in 2008, okay? Point made. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So when the meetings between Gates and Epstein began in 2011, that was 3 years after Epstein's conviction and registration as a known S offender. And like I said, the public may not have known about it. And then we didn't know he was an S offender in 2011, but B. Gates would have, allegedly. So that's where people start raising eyebrows. Not because there's proven criminal wrongdoing tied to Gates, but because of the optics. It's a very different thing to hang out with a billionaire and then to hang out with a billionaire who's been convicted of being a pedo, right? When someone has already pleaded guilty to crimes involving minors, continued association becomes controversial. It really is that easy. And that is the distinction that you're seeing a lot of creators make online. Then fast forward to 2019. This is when Epstein was arrested again in July of that year on federal trafficking charges involving minors. This is when the public found out about what actually began back in 2008. Now, a month later, on August 10th, 2019, he was found unalived in his cell at the Metropolitan Correction Center in New York. The official ruling was a self-unaliving, though his passing sparked widespread public skepticism and ongoing debate that lasts until this day. So just to clarify, the major updates very clearly, 2008 was the guilty plea and S-offender registration that the public didn't really know about, but higher up officials, government workers, media members, yada, 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 they did, okay? It was being actively hidden from the public, but not anybody else. 2011 is when the Gates meetings reportedly began, and 2019 is the federal arrest date and Epstein's passing. Laying those dates out chronologically, and so you can clearly see and understand them, matters. Because confusion around the timeline often fuels arguments that aren't rooted in the actual sequence of events. So when you line it up this way, it becomes less about rumor and more about understanding the context. These meetings happened, that's not being debated. And his conviction had already occurred at the time that these meetings took place. Public statements were later made expressing regret and condemnation from B. Gates about, his relationship with Epstein. Those, my friends, are just the facts of the matter. Everything beyond that moves into speculation. And it's very important to keep that boundary clear.
There's an email that Epstein's writing to Bill Gates,
right,
where he references that Bill Gates got an STD from some Russian girls and that he needed medicine to secretly give his wife so she didn't know about the STDs.
So, but he was going to probably give it to her unbeknownst to her.
He was trying to give her he was trying to get medicine from Epstein that he could give her, antibiotics or whatever, that she wouldn't know about.
So he could slip it in her coffee in the morning or some
whatever, something like that.
Dan, what's that herpes medicine?
Cyclovir, but that's not going to fix it. He probably doxycycline or something because he probably had chlamydia or something.
Whatever.
An STD, something easy to treat with an antibiotic.
So he picked up an STD from a Russian chick and then
multiple Russian girls, he said.
Then needed a high spot caper to try to get that mixed into his wife's, whatever, so that she didn't get it.
Which, if he's going to Epstein for that, man, I can't imagine some of the other things people were going to Epstein for.
Yeah.
I don't know if some of you are ready for this one. Here we have 2017 talking about the scope of some big project. Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates communicating here. What are they discussing in 2017? Pandemic simulation. So, allegedly, in my opinion, it seems like they were doing this for a multitude of reasons, including gaining more access to personal information and digitally redacted personal information. And it's saying they were following up on the specifications for strain pandemic simulation. Happy to do whatever else is helpful or adapt along the way. Thanks for the opportunity.
Latest emails from the Epstein files reveals Bill Gates, Epstein, and Barry Joseph discussed how to get rid of poor people, with speculation that mRNA vaccines were a way to do so. What the f***? In an email from 2011, director Barry Joseph writes to Jeffrey Epstein, I've been thinking a lot about that question that you asked Bill Gates. How do we get rid of poor people as a whole? And I have an answer. Many speculate that Barry Joseph was referring to the mRNA vaccine that comes after former Pfizer vice president and whistleblower Dr. Mike Yeadon revealed that the mRNA vaccine were actually bioweapons intentionally created to induce harm and reduce human fertility. This is in the e-files, so you better leave it up here, TikTok. There's the Jeffrey Epstein email talking all about it. Now, a lot of people said don't take this, and we were not bullshitting because we knew that something just came in all of a sudden, and then they wanted you to take this little thing to make yourself better all of a sudden, and then they were giving you a Happy Meal McDonald's, $50 gift cards, bonus lotteries in California. To get the jab, you got to give me a break. No way was I putting something poisonous in my body when I already knew that your body has an immune system. Okay, that God created all of us. But see, if you don't believe in God, or you believe God created scientists to create those things, you're wrong. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. But God created us all with an immune system. And all this junk food they put in the fucking stores, all this processed food and everything else, that's what's everybody up. And who bought those companies? The tobacco companies. And everything I'm saying is not a lie, TikTok, so don't take this down.
In these documents, it also very blatantly explains how the recruitment process took place or how it worked. If he wasn't having older girls look for younger girls, then allegedly, according to these files, you would have Ghislaine Maxwell and Juan, who was Epstein's house manager, driving around for hours looking for 12, 13, 14-year-old girls. And then when they found them, they would invite them for quote unquote modeling opportunities that then turned into quote massage careers. Now, mind you, these girls weren't even old enough to legally work. No, full stop. I want you to hear that again. They weren't old enough to legally work. And no, we all know this now. It wasn't just a massage. I'm sorry, but a decrepit old man has no business paying adolescent girls to rub his body. That alone tells me everything that I need to know about the recruitment and the operation. I'm sorry, but it just does, in my opinion. Now, we must center the victims, because they, of course, are at the very center of all of this. These weren't just names on a page. They were real people, mostly young girls, whose lives got shattered in ways that words can barely capture. From sworn testimonies and police interviews, we get a raw look at how this all unfolded. One girl, who was recruited as a minor, put it like this, quote, "I feel like I lost myself. I felt like I didn't exist outside of what they wanted me to be," end quote. She described being watched every second of every day. Her choices were ripped away. Allegedly, she was isolated in rooms for hours or even days without barely any human contact, beyond, of course, her abusers. Another teen testified, "I wasn't anything they saw. I was something they used," end quote. She talked about being shuttled between properties, across state lines, and all the while with adults barking orders that she was far too young to push back against. And the aftermath? Well, quote, "It wasn't just what he did to my body. It was what he did to my ability to trust the world," end quote. Law enforcement notes from multiple victims echo this same sentiment. Long-term anxiety, sleepless nights, and panic that hits out of nowhere. Almost all victims claim that their future relationships all fell apart because trust felt impossible. Isolation was allegedly a key weapon. Victims talked about being cut off from the outside. They had no options but to comply, which of course deepened that helpless void that they were feeling. One interview captured it perfectly. Quote, "I remember counting how many hours I was alone in that room. Every single one felt like an eternity," end quote. She doesn't say that she was scared. She doesn't say that the hours dragged by or they felt super long. She said that they felt like an eternity, like it would never end. Another described being locked in a guest wing while adults decided her fate, only letting her outside under strict watch. She described the walls themselves feeling like bars. Now, the more of these accounts that we consume or we read through, an indisputable pattern begins to emerge, which paints a picture of systematic grooming that stripped away consent. Girls were made to feel quote unquote special or chosen, literally how grooming works. They were showered with attention that normalized the abuse as some like twisted privilege. One explained, quote, "I thought I was being celebrated. Looking back, I see now that I was being prepared," end quote. Opportunities were dangled in front of these victims like bait. And mind you, these are all young, like teenage girls, adolescent girls. I'm talking things like jobs, mentorships, modeling gigs, or like even introductions to big names and promises of like a better life in the future. For teens who didn't see the trap until it was like snapped shut, this seemed like a perfect, like almost too good to be true scenario. All I have to do is give this guy a massage and I'm going to be hooked up for the rest of my life. A deposition captured it like perfectly. Quote, "They told me I was going to meet amazing people, ... Instead, I met my abuser's friends," end quote. Nightmares of being trapped with no way out haunted these victims for like years to come. Victims also talked about being moved between properties. Now we're talking Epstein had multiple locations. He had his Palm Beach mansion, his Manhattan house, the Virgin Islands, which I believe that was Little St. James, and then of course New Mexico. They claim that he kept them disoriented and the isolation cranked up to the maximum. One deposition reads as follows, quote, "It felt like my life only existed in that room. Outside didn't exist. No one could reach me," end quote. And in my opinion, I bet that also felt like no one could help you or no one could save you either. Especially when you've met all these like, powerful people and like higher ups throughout the world and they haven't done anything to help you, but instead they've joined in, allegedly. Then yeah, I imagine it would be hard to trust anybody or to know who would save you and what's safe and what's not. And oh my goodness, like, could you imagine the psychological toll that that would have on like an adult whose brain is fully developed? Now imagine on a child whose brain is not fully developed. Like, that's horrifying. I'm sorry, but it is just my opinion. And of course, this is all alleged, but like, if these documents are true, and personally, I always want to like believe the victims unless we're dealing with like a Amber Turd situation, but this is like completely different. Then like, I could only imagine the psychological toll that it would have on these young girls and young boys and like these young children who experienced this. It's awful. It truly is awful. Flight logs, of course, backed up these victim stories, matching trips to abuse sites. And the facilitators? Well, Ghislaine, Maxwell, and others were named repeatedly in statements about recruiting, grooming, guiding, etc. One girl said, quote, "She told me what to do and how to act, like I had no will of my own," end quote.
I was trying to a lot of types of different men. I was trying to other billionaires. I was to politicians, professors, even royalty. He used me as a form of blackmail. So, these people would owe him favors. I was so utterly mortified. I was like, this guy's watching me go to the toilet. He's watching everything that happens in the massage room. He's watching in me in my bedroom. He's, like everything's being recorded. And that's when I realized that's how he's getting away with blackmailing everybody. Biggest reason in my mind was because he wanted to always have something on someone just in case he needed it. Why it's important that the media and the government work hand in hand to try to uncover who was involved to the highest level of people in our government and even in international government.
This victim statement in the official Epstein files is so disturbing. The victim's name is rightfully redacted, so I'll just be saying victim in place of that. The statement reads as follows. Victim alleges that when she was a child, she was touched by the Ghislaine and Jeffrey Epstein. Victim alleges this happened between the years of 1991 to 1994. The victim alleges that this happened more than 30 times with Jeffrey and more than 10 times with Ghislaine. Victim alleges this happened at Jeffrey's West Palm Beach, Florida property and at various hotels. The victim alleges Ghislaine was the groomer for Jeffrey, and she was told by Ghislaine they would assist her in becoming a model. Victim alleges the grapes became violent and she had to have a schmish-mortion when she was 15 years old. Ghislaine and Jeffrey thought victim had told her grandparents about everything. Victim alleges that Ghislaine and a driver picked her up from school and told her they had a modeling contract for her and she needed to come with them. Victim alleges that Jeffrey and Ghislaine threatened to unalive her grandparents. Victim alleges this continued until after she had the schmish-mortion. Victim alleges she told grandparents about everything and she needed medical attention after the schmish-mortion. Victim alleges that her grandparents were afraid of Jeffrey and Ghislaine. Victim was sent redacted around the 1991 to 1992 school year. Victim alleges that around late 1992, Ghislaine and Jeffrey started calling her grandparents' house, and she needed to come back or people would come to the house and unalive her grandparents. This went on until her grandfather put her into hiding. Victim says she stayed in hiding until 1994. Victim said that she came into contact with a person named Mike DeLuca, and victim alleges this person was involved in a group rape when victim was 15. Victim believes this Mike was involved in both Jeffrey and Ghislaine. Victim said she didn't know Mike's name when she was group raped at Jeffrey's property in West Palm Beach. Mike promised he would not disclose where victim was at if redacted. Victim alleges that DeLuca told her grandparents that he was going to take victim to Redacted for a modeling convention and she would be safe, and grandparents asked her if she felt safe to go, but victim was afraid to say no because of the connection with Jeffrey and she went with Mike. When victim got to Redacted, Jeffrey and Ghislaine were there. Victim alleges they had dinner and was told she had told too many people about what had been going on. Victim excused herself from the dinner and called Redacted to come get her. Victim went back to the table and they wanted to leave, but they went back to hotel and Mike and Jeffrey graped her and Ghislaine helped hold her down by sitting on her face. Victim said when they were done, she was told they were going to an island and were going to get on a helicopter. Victim then told them she had already called home and someone was coming to get her. At this point, Mike took her home. Victim went into hiding, redacted. Victim says this was the last time she had any contact with them. As much as this person is a victim, they are also a brave survivor, and I just so deeply want them to get the justice that they deserve. I have no idea if these survivors will ever see this video, but if they do, can you please leave a quick comment with some hearts to show that we hear them and stand with them? I go down rabbit holes so you don't have to.
Now, I don't bring this up or show you these like exact victim quotes just for shock value. No, that's not what that's for. These words come from verified testimony, depositions, and law enforcement interviews. They humanize the horror beyond the headlines, or like further than I could ever begin to explain it to you. And they show the raw cost. That cost being hundreds of shattered adolescences and systems that failed each and every one of them. Behind every log, every email, and every transaction in these files, real lives were completely derailed. And as we peel back more layers of this, document release, I want you to remember this. What you've heard so far is just the foundation. We're going so much deeper. Now let's move into the story of a girl, mind you, who was allegedly impregnated as a minor during her time in Epstein's network. And I want to frame this extremely carefully. This is not internet rumor. These are statements drawn from verified deposition material and investigative notes. So this is real, documented trauma. And let me just forewarn you, it is extremely painful to read. Her story is terrifying and will be felt by every woman or person who hears it. This is like a typical terrifying witch story. Some witch coming in and stealing the mother's baby directly out of her arms immediately after she gave birth. That's horrifying. That's a horror story though, right? Like it's not real. Except when we read this young girl's journal entries, we realize how real that situation was for her and many others like her. In her journal, which was written in code, mind you, she talks about 3 pregnancies that took place over a short period of time. All pregnancies happened while she was a minor, mind you. And she states that each time the baby was forced out of her body. She talks about one baby weighing 4 pounds, 10 ounces. And according to her testimony or like her journal entries, it doesn't sound like she ever naturally went into labor, but rather that they were inducing her labor each and every time. She was so young, y'all, that in her journal, she described her stomach as her tummy because she was a fucking baby. She mentions how the first pregnancy didn't work. And Epstein got mad and said that they would get it right within a couple of months. Like, gee, thanks, that's cute. Why don't you just leave her alone? That'd be better. But no, you creep. And according to her, he was right. Because a few months later, she saw 2 pink lines appear on that pregnancy test. According to her, these pregnancies would happen either through, the R word or through IVF. But either way, it didn't really matter because it would result in a pregnancy. And all of this in an attempt, allegedly, for Epstein to create a superior race of humans. That girl goes on to say in her journal that each time the baby was forcefully taken out of her body, that Ghislaine Maxwell was there. She was present for the birth. And according to the girl's journal, Maxwell would cover her eyes saying, "Don't look, don't look." But the young lady said that each time she did look. And she remembers seeing a random baby hand or a foot. Once, she said she had even heard a baby cry. Each girl who Epstein got pregnant said the same thing, that they were allowed to hold their baby for maybe the first 10 to 15 minutes of its life, and then they would be allowed to breastfeed them as well during this time, to get them like their initial breast milk or colostrum, I believe it's called in the beginning. But after that short period of like 10 to 15 minutes maximum, the babies would be taken from them and they would never see them again. Nor did they really know what was being done to them or where their babies were being taken to. They had no idea. Like, where are all these babies? That's a really good question that we don't really have an answer to, mind you.
This is allegedly a victim's diary that was uploaded into the Epstein files. So let's go through it. As a warning, sensitive topics will be covered in this video. The diary appears to have been written in code, and while I will show both the coded and the deciphered pages, let's go through the code real quick. The code can be deciphered by going top to bottom, column to column. So CLOSE, close, YOUR, your EYES, eyes. Close your eyes. First page reads, close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. Don't speak, she doesn't talk. I can't stop shaking and it's been a week. A decision was made, but I can't tell Jeffrey. These things happen. Why didn't I close my eyes fast enough? The doctor was different again. I think from Israel. He has kind eyes, but he didn't speak directly to me. This was different. A shot in those rod things had a hook and so much pain. Ghislaine said to push all the pain away. I don't understand. Blood and water all over the bed. And she was right. Like a feeling when your tummy's hurting and you have to push. She said to close my eyes and put her hands over my eyes, but I didn't close them because of these tiny cries. I am so lost. I saw between her fingers this tiny head and body in the doctor's hands. It reached its tiny arm up and had a tiny foot. I closed my eyes and no more. This is the second page coded. It continues. No more cries. I don't understand. Just say these things happen, but he doesn't believe that. They yelled and screamed, and he said that it'll all be the same in a couple months, and she said that she was fed up with it all. I don't understand what's going on and no one will tell me. I can't go to school like this. I can't stop shaking. Why won't anyone make it stop? I know Ghislaine is trying, but nothing changes. Why didn't I close my eyes? This is the next page coded, which appears to have a poem about a stillborn and what appears to be possible magazine clippings that say short life tragedy, heartbreaking, and born. The deciphered text reads, in the hall, Ghislaine said she was beautiful. She was, not is. She was a beautiful girl. I heard her. Where is she? Why did she stop whimpering? She was born. I heard the tiny cries. I can't do this anymore. The next coded page, it reads, he was right. A couple of months and 2 pink lines with a hold on being with others until after it was positive. I want to, DIE. Why didn't she protect me? As long as I'm wearing what you want, there's no respect for me as a human. I am nothing but your property and incubator. You only trust me when I am under your complete control. I will never trust another man ever. I am the only one who provides and sacrificed everything. I give and I give out of terror, and you take all of me. You need me to continue. And the keeping us all connected is the graphic that was shown on the coded page. Then there's this coded page, which has a clipping that says, unlike substances, a woman's body can be sold over and over. It's not surprising, but there's no such thing as a child. They are children and cannot consent. They are missing the biggest in my own backyard and so many more. like Mar-a-Lago and Where I See Mr. Joe and Mrs. Ann. And this cut out about 21st century with coded wording that reads, "Please release me from this torture in hell."
I read the journal entry of one of the trafficked victims. She basically describes over a short period of time pregnant 3 times. Ugh. And describes each time the baby was forced out of her. One baby was 4 pounds 10 ounces. Did not seem like she was in delivery. It seemed like they were inducing her. She described it as having to, when your tummy hurts and you have to push. She used the word tummy. She was baby.
Yeah.
And so she described basically it didn't work out the first time, and Epstein was really mad. There was a lot of screaming, and he said, "Don't worry, we'll get it done in a couple months." And then she said he was right. In a couple months, there were 2 pink lines.
Oh my gosh.
So he was doing IVF or raping these girls, and probably a lot of others. So that was horrifying to me. And then the part that really got me was that Maxwell was there the whole time covering her eyes, saying, "Don't look." But each time she did look, and she would see the baby's hand or the baby's foot.
Oh my God.
And she said that she would hear the baby cry. Now, this is the part where you can say it's conspiracy or not. I don't know. Each time these girls were allowed to hold the baby for 10 or 15 minutes. Why were they allowed to hold that baby for 10 to 15 minutes and then the baby was taken and they never saw the baby again? Where are all these babies is a really good question.
Yeah.
Let's read excerpts directly from her diary and her deposition in order to understand her mental state and the tragic events that she alleges happened to her. I'm going to read quotes directly from her diary. So these are her words, not mine. Quote, "They kept me isolated. I couldn't tell anyone. They made sure that I understood that he had power over me and the baby." End quote. So sounds like he has the baby, at least hers. Quote, "I wanted to protect my child, but there was no choice. I was trapped. And even after, I couldn't speak without fear." End quote. "I want my baby." That's another quote. Quote, "I lost the baby. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself, ... or him." End quote. I want you to stop for 1 second. Let those quotes sink in, because these were written by a minor, adolescent, teenage girl. These are not paraphrases. These are not secondhand interpretations. These are verified statements under oath from filings and investigative notes.
Guys, here is one of the most telling things in the files. This girl's journal. You can see here that she wrote everything in code, but it's pretty simple to decipher. You just go one down, so S-O, so, and then S-O-R-R-Y, so sorry, okay? So this is basically the story of an underage girl who was used to just keep giving birth, and they would take her babies, and it would traumatize her. And this is definitely one of the saddest stories that you can find in the files. So sad, the sea could be beautiful if it weren't filled with monsters. After they took the first baby that survived and the early miscarriage, I think it was called, I no longer feel like a person, but a vessel. Will they take this one too? Who has the first one? And throughout these journals, she continuously blames herself for this, for not being able to take care of her babies. And as if we didn't need more proof, there's actually a photo of an ultrasound attached here. Jeffrey treats me like I'm special property, and there's a lot of these, so I'm not going to be able to go over everything, but I encourage you to look at them yourself. When I screenshot these, I included the number at the top, so you can use those to find it. You can see the EFTA, blah, blah, blah. Here's another ultrasound picture. And then she questions herself, have these all been murdered? Does this make me a... Doesn't matter how far away you are, no matter how good you think they are. Even the old president, they will get you. He should have been thinking of Chelsea, gross, so I'm assuming that this is in reference to Bill Clinton, the president in the 90s. By the way, they did actually remove one of the posts showing one of the journals, but the internet saved everything. Here are some of the removed ones. The doctor was different again, I think from Israel. She says, I can't go to school like this. I can't stop shaking. I heard her. Where is she? Why did she stop whimpering? She was born. I heard the tiny cries. I can't do this anymore. So this kind of implies that they did something to silence the baby, something bad. I am nothing but property, your property, and incubator. This is not surprising, but there's no such thing as a child property. They are children and cannot consent. They are missing, the biggest in my own backyard, and so many more, like Mar-a-Lago, where I see Mr. Joe and Miss Anne. Superior gene pool? Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair color and eye color? We know that Jeffrey Epstein was heavily into eugenics. So, and again, since I mentioned it, these are all the ones that they had removed.
This is what human trauma looks like in the pages of this federal documentation. And this is why we must discuss it in very plain human terms. Because behind every flight log, every coded email, and every financial record are people who actually lived through this nightmare. Now let's move into one of the most gut-wrenching parts of all of this. It's heavy, it's dark, and it's going to hit you right in the gut. And then it's probably going to stick with you for a while. Let me just go ahead and pre-warn you right from the start. From this point forward, the material that we are about to get into is extremely disturbing. I cannot stress that point enough. Some of the claims found in these documents are dark, extremely dark, very, very graphic, and honestly, extremely hard to process. So if you're a parent and if you have children anywhere around you right now, please take a little piece of advice from me and pause this video. I dead ass cannot stress that point enough. What we are about to discuss is absolutely under no circumstances appropriate for children to hear. Not even in the background. And I understand we're discussing allegations that happen to children, but that should just let you know how messed up these allegations are. So if any children are in the room with you, please take a second, pause the video, or just come back to it later if need be. I promise you, earmuffs are not good enough. Because from this point forward, things take a very dark turn. There are even allegations in these documents of professors allegedly teaching Epstein how to get babies to suck harder. Yeah, you heard me right. And you want to know how they were doing it? Well, I'm sure you don't, but you already know that I have to include it. Apparently, according to these professors, if you keep the baby dehydrated and hungry, it will therefore, quote unquote, suck harder. And then, mind you, these babies were given to grown men, and these grown adults were orally R-wording them. I'm sure you already knew that's where I was going with this, but yeah, that's where we're going. Babies, y'all, babies. And this is written in these emails. I believe the exact email says, quote, they will suck more vigorously. He also is recorded in these documents saying, quote, if you play the voice of the mother, they will suck more, end quote. That, my friends, literally is written. I'm sorry, but they deserve to burn in hell. They deserve to burn in hell. I guess if you were to play devil's advocate here, you could technically say, oh, he was just teaching these girls to breastfeed. If you were going to be Epstein's defense attorney and you were trying to argue his quote unquote innocence, I guess you could technically say that that's what they were trying to do with these emails, right? That would be your best chance at a cover story. Except that wouldn't even work. Because no mother is going to starve or dehydrate their baby so that they will latch better or eat faster at the next sitting. I promise you, it's not a thing. No way, no how, no shot in hell. So no, in my opinion, this exact portion of emails cannot be innocently explained away. Under no circumstances. At least not in my opinion. Also, if you were trying to help, mothers learn how to latch better or teach their babies how to latch better, why would you send emails like this to Epstein years after he was known as a, public pedo? No, my friends, this was not an innocent email. I'm sorry, it just wasn't. In my opinion, there's no way this is an innocent email, and they got caught. Straight up. And if we can prove that this much is being discussed in writing, imagine what they're saying on the phone or even in person where no official record is being kept. Now, according to internet theorists and online forums, there's tons of dark magic or sick ritualistic books out there that talk about gaining youth from consuming baby meat or baby blood, adrenochrome. Or allegedly in these emails, we see big names like B. Gates and Epstein talking about babies and consuming their intestines. They refer to this as, quote, cream cheese. And allegedly, they talk about the taste of formula or breast milk in the intestines of babies. But the tricky part about the intestines delivering youth to the person who's, consuming them is apparently the intestines only deliver youth to the consumer if there is colostrum present inside of the intestines at the time of consumption.
Where are all these babies is a really good question.
Yeah.
So that's where you get into this idea of, well, there are many books on cannibalistic rituals of that it can give you youth if you eat intestines when that colostrum is present in the intestines.
So is that why these mothers were allowed to feed their babies for that initial 10 to 15 minutes? I don't know. Seems like it makes sense. Because, in my personal opinion, I highly doubt that Epstein allowed the mother to feed her baby for 15 minutes and only 15 minutes because he cared so much about their bond, right? Yeah, right. That definitely wasn't the motive here. But again, that's just my opinion. We need to address something that keeps coming up over and over again in these documents. And it's strange. Just outright fucking weird. Because on the surface, some people say it looks completely normal. And of course, what I'm talking about is the repeated use of food-related words in emails and communications found throughout these files. Things like cream cheese tied to babies. Yeah, I'm talking, quote, millions of babies, very little good vegetable cream cheese, end quote. I don't know, bad grammar doesn't mean something else than what they're saying. You tell me. Words like pizza, cheese pizza, pepperoni pizza, beef jerky, cream cheese, and grape soda. Now, if you just glance at those words in isolation, it sounds like people making a grocery list. But context matters. And when you read some of these emails in full, especially in the exhibits connected to the Guthrie versus Maxwell case, the language starts to feel off. For example, in unsealed exhibits, you see phrases like, make sure, quote unquote, cheese pizza arrives at the East Hampton house tomorrow afternoon. Or things like, deliver, quote unquote, pepperoni pizza to the guest at the Little St. James residence by 6 p.m. There's also quotes like, beef jerky is ready for transport. Coordinate with driver for pickup. What? Yeah, and I'm not done. We got pepperoni pizza confirmed for Tuesday. Don't forget travel logistics. Now pause for a second. Why would food require coordinated travel logistics? Why would beef jerky need transport coordination and specific drivers?
We see these emails last week about, take a Viagra and then we'll go get some pizza and grape soda. Ha ha ha.
It's nuts.
I can't believe it in some of these cases.
And the code word usage. The other thing, John, that's so sinister is it's almost like it was a giant, fuck you meme to everyone, like the worst sadistic kind, because you have a guy emailing from an account called JEE Vacation. You can't even make this up. That's like what your grandpa would make on an auto AOL account back in 1999 when he wanted to be hip and make an email.
Again, I am not saying that this absolutely proves anything. But when language appears repeatedly in unusual logistical contexts, people, rightfully so, start asking questions. Because, it seems suspicious, bro. And that's where the internet speculation enters the conversation. Now, online, some theorists connect these phrases to what became known as Pizzagate, or the theory that certain food terms were coded references to minors, specifically cheese pizza allegedly meaning CP, or kitty corn. Pepperoni pizza allegedly referred to boys. Boys, not men, boys. Let me be very clear here. Those interpretations are not confirmed in the court filings. No federal indictment states that quote unquote pizza was a verified code for exploitation. But anyone with a brain is putting this stuff together on their own. There is no official document that definitively decodes these terms. But what the filings do show is repetition. And repetition is all that's needed to fuel speculation. Now, while the deletes could absolutely argue that their words were taken out of context and they were actually just talking about ordinary banter, maybe about bagels or orders, Internet theorists claim something completely different. They say that couldn't be farther from the actual truth of the matter. It's an endless argument. Coincidence versus coded communication. Which side are you on? I'm personally leaning more towards like coded communication, but again, just my opinion. What do I know? I ain't never been to Little St. James, so I don't fucking know. The emails do absolutely exist, and some phrases overlap suspiciously with timelines. Like how many victims name people using, quote, code names, using only like the first letter of a person's name. And many of the girls wrote journal entries about a, quote, Dr. M. And come to find out, once these files were released, we see references, like constant references, to a Dr. Mark Landon, who frequented the island. Mind you, he's a fertility specialist. So the names that we have documented in these files do actually match up with victim testimonials, like way more often than you might think. Probably because these victims are telling the truth. Imagine that. But we still have to legally label it as speculation because no hard proof ties them directly to any crimes.
Oh, you guys are definitely going to want to stick with me on this one because we have a very interesting connection with Epstein and this gynecologist, Dr. Mark Landon. So Dr. Landon is a longtime OBGYN and the former head of obstetrics and gynecology at the Wexner Medical Center at Ohio State University. Now, stick with me through this. I promise you it's worth it. And of course, make sure to hit that follow button. But for reference, the newly released Epstein files show that Dr. Landon was receiving $25,000 quarterly payments from Jeffrey Epstein's financial network in the early 2000s. There are internal emails discussing his quarterly agreement, and there are questions about whether the payment should be $25,000 or $30,000. Those are references to structured payments that were due in January, April, July, and October. And at one point, Epstein himself replies in an email, $75,000 per year, which suggests a $75,000 annual agreement. Now, on top of that, there were packages that were sent to Dr. Landon from Epstein's associates between 2001 and at least 2004. The contents? Who the hell knows? Well, Dr. Landon knows. Now, Landon has publicly denied any wrongdoing, says that he was consulting for a group tied to Epstein on biotech investments and that he never treated Epstein or any victims. That is his statement. But here's where things start to get really interesting. Epstein's most significant financial patron for years was Les Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie & Fitch, and other brands. Wexner's name appears extensively in the Epstein records, and he has been officially identified by Congress as a co-conspirator. That's separate from this specific payment issue, but it matters contextually. So, look at the name on the medical center. The medical center that Dr. Landon is at, it is called the Wexner Medical Center. Now, stick with me. It's not named after Les Wexner. The building is named after a man named Harry Wexner, who just happens to be Les Wexner's father. Even so, Les Wexner still donated about $100 million to the university, and the hospital still bears the Wexner family name. So, let's recap, shall we? A gynecology department head at a major university medical center receiving structured quarterly payments from Jeffrey Epstein's financial network, while Epstein's closest billionaire patron's family's name, Wexner, is on the medical center. Now, no criminal charges have been filed against Dr. Landon in connection with Epstein, nor have they been filed for Les Wexner, but the financial arrangement is documented in emails and the payments were real. So, do you think that the names are just a coincidence here? Because I certainly don't.
You also see many phrases like yummy, yummy in contexts that feel out of place given the tone of the surrounding messages. Now, does it like automatically mean that it's coded language? No, I guess not necessarily. But could it be? Well, yeah, possibly. And when you're dealing with millions of pages, patterns matter more than single phrases. If a word appears once, like cool, it could be just a coincidence, or like how someone talks. If it appears hundreds of times in structured travel coordination emails, people are, of course, going to ask questions. Now, here is where this gets complicated. Because once the internet grabs onto a pattern, it can escalate very quickly. Some extreme online theories go far beyond coded language and move into ritual abuse claims. And these claims are extreme, including things like cannibalism accusations and many other highly sensational narratives. As of right now, those extreme claims are not sustained by verified federal court filings tied to like any Epstein prosecution. So like I had to make it clear that there is no like document proving what these coded words or like, you know, food related coded words in these emails actually refer to. Everyone online is just kind of like speculating and forming their own opinions based off of the context clues that were also provided in these emails along with these like coded words, right? Now, this is where that point that I made in the beginning of the video becomes like uber important, because this is where people start like interpreting all this stuff to like mean whatever they think it means and, you know, doing the best of their ability. Mind you, like it's not like people just pulling things out of their butt. Like they're actually trying to figure out what this stuff means, but without any context clues, without this stuff being categorized or labeled. It was just kind of like all these 3.5 million pages was just left up to every single person who dug through it to just like interpret and make up their own opinion on. And that's how stuff like this gets confused and altered, and meanings of words get like shifted or whatever, right? And that's how they're going to come out like a couple months from now, a year from now, and be like, oh, look at all those internet sleuths who dug all this digging into those files as soon as they were released, and they got everything wrong, quote unquote wrong, because we had no context. Like, hello, they did that for a purpose. Like they did that for a reason, but that's just my opinion. Let me make that very fucking stupid clear. It's like typical strategy, document dump, and I'm not going to label anything. I'm just going to throw everything in your lap. So like, good luck. You know what I mean? You're going to be digging through information for months, if not a year, to find anything. It's typical strategy, but highly annoying. But I had to make that distinction clear because like, I don't want to lose my credibility with you guys. So I didn't want to be like, yeah, for sure, beef jerky means this. We don't know that. Now, read the context clues in these emails I'm going to show you, and you can have your own opinion for what they mean. By all means, have your own opinion.
Hope you are feeling better. Did we analyze the jerky? Why didn't we get jerky this week? I also added more to the jerky and ginger lemongrass. Thank you so much. Super cool. Beef jerky, delicious. Jojo is here and we'll walk the jerky over to Jeffrey. We'll walk the jerky over to Jeffrey. Why would jerky walk around? Why would it do that? Delicious lunch, beef jerky. Steve and I are very grateful above all for your friendship. Some of these emails are so wholesome, aren't they? It's too bad they eat kids. A small insulated bag would be fine. I don't ruin checking it. No need for crazy amounts of ice. One should do. There is one bag of beef jerky in the fridge. Please get it. Also, Blank has more at her place. Please get it from her as well. I suppose it needs to be in a cold, insulated bag. Just wanted to touch base about jerky. J.E. said he was going to start eating regular food again, so he might be eating less jerky. He said he has 6 bags of it in the downstairs freezer. Why would you freeze jerky? Steve needs a 6 to 8 ounce portion of jerky. I gave you all the jerky we had, and it lasted only half the amount of time it was meant to. I felt like it was more important for you to have the jerky to eat during my time off. My plan is to make a batch before I leave for LSJ, and some of that will go to Steve, and the rest will go to you at LSJ when I arrive. Little St. James Island. And that's what LSJ must mean. So logically, that means that they were doing this off of the island. Steve Hansen is sending jerky to your attention overnight. I believe it should be enough to get him through. Jeffrey Epstein is asking to bring him more jerky. I'm flying in on Friday. I will bring jerky. Is there a time I could come say hi and drop off the beef jerky? And that's from Jeffrey Epstein. Francis has time to come tomorrow. Show me how to make it. Jerky class anyone. He will bring you to taste his new jerky recipe from the restaurant. He sends a warm hello. He's working at a restaurant called guys, the restaurant's called Cannibal and Cooks. Wait for it. Beef jerky and steak. Can Blank make some jerky? I think we should landscape all around the house to use the water if possible, if the main house is not enough. Are there any recorded images of Jeffrey Epstein with beef jerky at all? No, there are no recorded or publicly known images of Jeffrey Epstein with beef jerky.
Like what?
Jeffrey Epstein said he was going to start eating regular food again, so he might be eating less jerky. He has bags of it in the downstairs freezer for his next trip. It's pretty obvious what jerky is a code name for, and I don't think people are nearly as upset as they should be.
The way they refer to, we need more jerky, we need to put it in the fridge, we need this number of pounds of it, we have to cook it. This email right here
Yeah.
that Deef pulled up says, how is your jerky situation? Should I bring any more? And there's another email to Jeffrey Epstein from unknown. Francis has time to come tomorrow to show me how to make it. Jerky class, anyone? He will also bring you a taste of his new jerky recipe from the restaurant and sends a warm hello. He is working at a restaurant called Cannibal and Cooks. Is this real?
This is from Jmail.
Wait for it. Beef jerky and steak. He has time at 3 p.m. tomorrow if this is okay with you. And they refer to like, didn't they refer to storing it like chemically?
No, in freezers.
Yeah.
That's why I thought blood.
People break down cannibalism motives into three main categories. The first one being sadistic ones, where the whole point is like inflicting pain and consuming the meat as the reward. The second one are your like psychotic ones. These are like, most related to our serial unalivers who consume human meat to feel like they keep the person, quote unquote, inside them, almost like an internalized friend. Okay, it's creepy, but it's like the second version of cannibalism. I think I can say that. Who knows? We'll find out, I guess. And then there's the last one, which is allegedly the elite version. And this one has been written about and movies have been made about it for centuries. This is where it is treated almost like a delicacy. There are old books about powerful people dining on human meat going back literally hundreds of years. And these emails allegedly discuss baby intestines tasting like formula or breast milk, but only, of course, if like colostrum is present and the baby was fed beforehand. Hence those theories we talked about earlier regarding why mothers were allowed to breastfeed for just 10 to 15 minutes post-birth before their baby was taken. Was it for some like youth boost ritual? Who knows? Seems like it, but I don't know for sure. That code word cream cheese ties back into this claim here as well, at least like per the theories. Now the source for these specific dark ass claims, well, these come from an unverified FBI interview with an anonymous man talking about yacht rituals, baby dismemberment, and even feces consumption. Whew, yeah, we're going there.
Blank also described several infants being and their intestines removed, as well as other acts of cannibalism. Blank also stated that former United States President George H.W. Bush was engaged in a sex act with an unknown male black, and so much more. So this could be one of the most disturbing new drops from the Epstein file release. This is essentially a tip that was turned into the FBI, I believe, in 2019, August 2019. Basically, this is like the rundown of an interview with an alleged victim of Epstein's who wanted to come forward with what happened to them. And this story is incredibly disturbing. Blank stated that he first met Epstein at approximately age 4 while at the blank East Greenwich, Rhode Island. Then he said his family members of the blank stated at the time he was raped by his great uncle and that Epstein was there but didn't touch him. He goes on to say that Epstein spoke to him after he was raped by his great uncle, but he didn't know who Epstein was until way later in 2016. But he continues, Blank further stated in sum and substance that while on a large luxury ship that sailed out of the Newport Beach show in Newport, Rhode Island, September Blank at approximately 8 years of age, he, Blank, was subjected to some type of medical exam on the yacht by unknown doctor. While his great uncle and family members were present, Blank went on to describe a bizarre event in which Blank inserted a tape measure in his. Blank stated subsequent to the exam he was then by Epstein, as well as former United States President Bill J. Clinton, while in a heavy drug-induced state. Blank also stated that the bottoms of his feet and back were slashed. Black further stated also during the said yacht trip, multiple unknown male blacks or black people were engaged in acts with unknown female whites who had their backs slashed and were. Blank also described several infants being and their intestines removed, as well as other acts of cannibalism. Blank also stated that former U.S. President George H.W. Bush was engaged in a act with an unknown male black. Former United States Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and businessman George Soros were present on the same yacht while all of the aforementioned acts of were occurring. Blank was then asked if he had any injuries or scars as evidence, to which Blank responded, "On my." The victim then provided a handwritten list of his family and extended family members and suggested they talk to them. He also stated that his great uncle is in possession of video evidence of his crimes against Blank, as well as several films that Blank had watched in the presence of his great uncle. So in this one tip alone, we've got multiple former US presidents named, multiple high-profile government figures, allegations of a yacht party, which I don't find to be unrealistic, more allegations of medical experiments done on victims, which Epstein was obviously fond of, potential films. And this isn't the first time we've heard these allegations in relation to Epstein. However, we're seeing more and more of them now, and I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that this might not be a joke anymore.
Now, pushing even deeper into conspiracy territory, there's the Kuru claim. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, and I'm sure like majority of you don't, because we're not a bunch of sickos, there's a certain disease that you can get from consuming raw human brain. That disease is called Kuru. Now that you know that, listen to this. A doctor who frequented, Epstein's Island. He's also someone who taught at Harvard and is now like a world-renowned professor at Princeton. Wrote a 1998 article on Kuru and prions, focusing on slowing brain regeneration to fight Alzheimer's and dementia. So the internet theory regarding this? Well, of course, they say that this obviously points to the fact that, consuming raw human brains prevents like brain decline. It's the ultimate youth serum, according to theorists. But again, this claim has no proof. It's just an academic paper, so it's not really a confession. Now, is it weird that like Epstein has been accused of like this cannibalism claim in these files, and then there's this doctor that's hanging around at his house who's then going to like publish articles about Kuru, a disease that you can get from cannibalism? Yeah, it's pretty fucking weird. Like, how many coincidences before we say it's mathematically impossible? I don't know. You decide.
One of the biggest things was that usually when you eat raw human brain, there's a virus you can get. The bacteria, I think, is called prion. Okay. And it gives you, this is where you can call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't know. Prove me wrong. It gives you a disease called Kuru. Kuru.
Okay.
Now, the doctor that was frequently coming, who taught at Harvard and had his assistant, who's now a world-renowned professor at Princeton, he wrote an article in 1998 on prions and Kuru. And his primary focus was trying to slow down the degeneration of the brain when you have Alzheimer's, when you have diseases like this.
But the argument could be that he was studying the brain and he just wanted to know the effects rather than he took part in anything. But then coincidentally, he was frequently going to the island and working with Epstein.
Yes.
Got it.
And then you have other doctors to the point of inviting Epstein over when they knew their children were having sleepovers. And across the world, other countries as well. So it's deciphering how much did people know. This is why we need everyone to testify.
Yeah.
We need to hold them accountable.
Weird, right? Had to point it out. But I also got to let you know there's no proof. Just in like full, honor of the truth and honor of being 100% transparent with you. That's what I'm going to do. So these ideas are, again, just like pure internet theories. They're not backed by anything in court documents. However, they are fascinating and like terrifying to just sit here and speculate and think about. But they have to stay labeled as unconfirmed because officially they are. The filings further document systematic trafficking, transport, and exploitation across multiple states and properties, like New York, Florida, New Mexico, the US Virgin Islands, and like beyond. Multiple depositions describe how victims were shuffled between houses, hotels, private jets, and even private islands. Those travel patterns overlap with financial transactions and like coded communications. It's one thing to just read a flight log, but it is a complete other thing to like see a coded email about quote unquote cheese pizza arriving at a property on a date when multiple young like adolescent victims were allegedly reportedly transported like to that same property on the same day. And that's a little sus. Like that overlap drives serious analysis. And you can't just say like, oh, they're all speculating. No, like there might be something there. It's very similar to the victims, constantly referring to this Dr. M in their diaries or their journals. And then in the files, we see a Dr. Mark Landon who was named, who was like around all the time. Is it coincidence or is that who they were referring to? You let me know. Let's talk about Zorro Ranch for a minute, because that property has taken on almost a myth-like status in online discussions. Zorro Ranch is a roughly 7,500 acre property in New Mexico owned by Jeffrey Epstein. It has been mentioned in court documents and reportings, particularly in relation to his alleged plans involving eugenics and quote-unquote seeding ideas that we discussed earlier in this video. We also, in these documents, see allegations about Smithsonian-like rooms that were everywhere that Epstein was, and alleged Smithsonian doctors that were constantly being emailed, saying things like, quote, "Where are you? When will you be here? I need you," end quote. Like, why do you need so many Smithsonian doctors so frequently around Epstein? I see you, dog. I see you. And code words like, quote, "dentist" allegedly mean Smithsonian. And I say that because right around this time is when you start seeing terms like the dentist pop up in emails. You'll see things like, oh, so-and-so needs to go to the dentist. And if they can't go to the dentist, then the dentist will come to them. Or things like, quote, "everyone needs a dental cleaning," end quote. And get this, Epstein wanted pictures of these dental visits, like sent to him, but not like while the girls were getting their teeth cleaned. No. He wanted before and after pictures of a dental cleaning. Yeah, okay. So the internet has speculated that, quote, "the dentist" is code words for them actually talking about Smithsonians. And that's why Dr. M. Landon, or Dr. Mark Landon, was allegedly around Epstein so frequently, being that he's a fertility specialist. The speculation claims that those pictures that Epstein wanted sent to him before and after somebody visited the dentist was like proof of these procedures being carried out. But again, it's unproven. The argument is that criminals talk in code to hide what they are actually doing. High officials especially don't commit crimes blatantly. They use secrecy, loopholes, and coded language. All allegedly, of course. So is this just paranoia? Or is it a real pattern? Well, honestly, the choice is up to you. But the debate rages on.
This email, I think, is really important, and thank you to my friend Randy who sent me this today. So this is an email to a man named Eddie Aragon, who I guess is a radio host Republican running for the House in New Mexico coming up in June. Eddie, you want to explain what's going on here to us in this email, bud? So we don't know who it's from, but it's to Eddie, right? And it says, "Edward, this is sensitive, so it will be the first and last email depending on your discretion. You can choose to take it or trash it, but this comes from a person that has been there and seen it all as a former staff at the Zorro Ranch. Material below was taken from J.E.'s home as their insurance in case of future litigation against J.E. Sorry, no questions. What is damning about J.E. is yet to be written. Did you know somewhere in the hills outside of the Zorro Ranch, 2 foreign girls were buried on the orders of J.E. and GM. Both were unalived by during rough FS. And then whoever sent it says, here is the video footage of J.E. And we've got all these different files, guys, 7 different files. And look what they say. 3 S with a minor, underage girl, S video, and so on. There's this last one here. Girl from Bay Area, S attempt, confession to Ghislaine. At the end it says, please arrange for 1 Bitcoin by 6 p.m. today, Thursday, 11/22/19 at this address. The USB will be sent anonymously to your attention by overnight courier upon receipt of the funds. You have my assurance this is exclusive, never shared before. No attorneys, no samples, no questions, please. Confirm ASAP. And then we see here that Eddie forwarded this email to someone else who we cannot see. So Eddie, what do you say, bud? You want to come and answer some questions perhaps about what's going on here in this email? And maybe you can shed some light on those 2 girls who lost their lives out at the Zorro Ranch. And all of this makes me wonder, guys, how many lives do you think were lost at the hands of both DT and JE?
Remember this email that someone wrote to the devil? We're not calling him his name anymore. That's his new name, by the way, because every time I say his legal name, the video gets suppressed, and we want this video to go out. What gyno do you take your victims to? Well, we now know, Mark Landon, don't we? And if I'm wrong, Mark, then explain why you were receiving $25,000 every quarter from the devil himself. There's an email from the devil's lawyer to the devil asking if they're still paying you 75 grand a year. And it seems like you were doing lots of services because there's FedEx receipt after FedEx receipt after FedEx receipt of all the receipts that were being sent from the devil to you. Now we know that an OBGYN was performing on 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old victims. We know that from their journals. We know that from their sonograms. We know that from their actual words. Which, by the way, I just really quickly want to say, quick side note, that is evidence enough. Victims' words, especially when there's tons. But even if not, and by the way, this man is the head of the OBGYN department at Ohio State Medical University. So Mark, if you weren't the OBGYN delivering babies, performing, possibly even treating STIs, we see a bunch of emails about that, then you tell us what all this is. You tell us what the devil was paying you for all of those years, early 2000s. We are just getting started.
Allegedly, when Epstein knew that they were going to arrest him, he ordered 330 gallons of sulfuric acid. And that was just like a one-time order. He also ordered another 50 gallons of sulfuric acid at another point too. Why? On the internet, that detail has been interpreted as possible proof that Epstein was involved in evidence destruction. They say that he knew that the FBI was onto him in 2018, so therefore he ordered like 330 pounds of sulfuric acid or something. It's insane. And then he placed another order shortly after. Internet theorists claim, of course, he was ordering this sulfuric acid to destroy evidence and to destroy any BODIES that he had left on his property. Before, those pesky FBI raids were going to take place at his properties, of course. Allegedly, again, not proven, just internet speculation.
When they knew they were going to come arrest him, he ordered 330 gallons of sulfuric acid, which is
what?
Which is how you would dispose of babies.
Anything, really.
Anything. And then
how many gallons did he order?
330 at one point, and I believe 50 at another point.
Sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there are mentions, and now Congress is actually speaking about it. They did this week. A few Republican Congress women, I believe, and Thomas Massey spoke about Zorro Ranch and how there's so many mentions of bury them in Zorro Ranch, leave them in Zorro Ranch. And now that's 7,000 acres of land that Jeffrey Epstein owns in New Mexico. And it's actively working right now.
Is it?
Now,
this might be a really ignorant question, and it probably is. Is it on native land?
No.
Okay.
No, it's considered like a little town, and they changed the street names. On Google Maps, it's like blurred out. You can ask them to do that.
This is where the Epstein files start to become a little scary for me. So as you can see above, this is an invoice that was paid by Jeffrey Epstein's company. This invoice was for 6 55-gallon drums of sulfuric acid. Okay, that's a lot of sulfuric acid. Now alone, this sulfuric acid would be kind of suspicious, right? But let's look at that date up there. December 6, 2018. Now that was the exact same day that FBI announced charges against Epstein in his sex trafficking cases. So then I started to really research into sulfuric acid, its uses, correct? And this medical journal did a study regarding how corrosive it would be for human. They used a donated corpse, and it was found that sulfuric acid was able to dissolve parts of a human corpse rapidly, and DNA identification was no longer possible after only 1 hour of exposure. Now imagine what can be done with over 330 gallons of sulfuric acid. Epstein clearly got scared that, the FBI was going to come after him. They had already announced it, and so he started to destroy the evidence. All the evidence. And by evidence, I mean people.
There has been no court finding confirming that the acid was used for anything criminal. That leap comes from public speculation and not adjacent proof. Similarly, you'll see claims circulating online about temporary airspace restrictions over the ranch. Those claims, of course, result in fueling the theories of cleanup operations or hidden activity still taking place at Epstein's property.
Again, this would be conspiracy. A couple days ago, we closed the airspace over Zorro Ranch for 10 days. Weird, right?
God.
That's where I'm like, okay.
It's enough to make your head explode.
It's enough for me to be like, I'm not going to take that as truth, but I'm building this, I'm filling my bucket with doubt that this administration was clean.
But they have not necessarily been substantiated in official court records as of yet. This is where the pattern repeats throughout this case. A documented property, documented ownership, documented investigations, and then layers of interpretation built on top of it. When you zoom out from like just the ranch and look at the broader public reaction, the frustration becomes clearer. There is widespread anger over perceived lack of transparency. People feel like powerful names appear in documents, yet accountability feels uneven. That frustration has led to a surge of theories. Some are grounded in like filings found in the testimony, and others are built almost entirely from like speculation or, inference. Now, in my opinion, the reason that this case generates so much intensity is because it sits at the intersection of real documented abuse and unanswered questions. When official records confirm exploitation, but other details remain sealed, redacted, or like even unresolved, people begin filling in the blanks themselves. Like naturally, I think that's just like a natural reaction because we want to know what happened. So we're trying to make sense of it. And that, my friends, is where we have to be very careful. There is absolutely, without a doubt, documented wrongdoing. There are absolutely, without a doubt, documented victims. And again, there are absolutely, without a doubt, documented associations with powerful individuals. Beyond that, we're simply like moving into like conspiracy territory. And I just have to be very frank with you about that point. I think it's time that we touch on some of these like internet theories that are like going the most viral right now. And I want to touch on them because in my opinion, I don't think that these creators just like invented these theories out of thin air. Like I highly doubt that people were just sitting around and randomly decided to connect Hollywood to ritual temples and coded invoices just for like shiggles. They were reacting to this like document release and the fact that within it, there's a like heavy use of vague wording in places that like the wording just does not make sense, at least in the context that we're given for it. On top of that, the documents themselves are full of redactions, unexplained references, and language that just feels off. When you combine that with the elite names, private islands, flight logs, sealed records, and years of like institutional silence, then of course people are going to start trying to connect dots. Like they're seeing tons of phrases that are never getting clarified. They're seeing quote unquote medical treatments with like no real details. They're seeing architecture that looks extremely symbolic. And of course, they're all seeing like redacted names next to very powerful figures. And when there's no full explanation, naturally your imagination fills in the gaps. Now, when people are left to like connect the dots on their own, we have to like keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily automatically mean that the picture that like each and every one of them is going to end up with is like 100% accurate, obviously, because like they're all just interpreting this information in their own way. Sometimes the lines get stretched. Sometimes older conspiracy narratives get layered on top of real events, whether they have like actual ties or not. But like the actual impulse itself to connect dots when like we're not fully given 100% transparency on like a subject as dark as this one, that comes from people trying to make sense of something that already feels way too dark to ever like fully understand, on top of being like 75% incomplete. Like nobody likes when things are like released being redacted. If you're going to release it, just unredact it. Like, come on, what's the point of releasing it? When institutions don't communicate clearly, when documents are partially sealed, and when answers feel filtered, it naturally creates a vacuum, and vacuums get filled. So what you're about to hear aren't necessarily official findings. They're interpretations. Some are extreme, some are built on suspicious wording, and some are just pure speculation. But almost all of them started from the same place, trying to understand why so much of this case feels unresolved, or like shrouded in secrecy. One of the most extreme claims floating around says that elite Hollywood figures were exposed as ritual cannibals, and that Ellen DeGeneres allegedly unalived and then later consumed Anne Heche. I don't know if I'm saying her last name correct or not. The quote-unquote evidence cited in these posts usually involves recycled quote-unquote pizza-coded language, whistleblower audio clips, and the idea that Ellen's relocation to the UK was some kind of escape from exposure.
Did you read it? These people are demons.
I have this crazy idea that I will order pizza. And so if I do, I don't want it to go to waste. Who will eat pizza if I... Jennifer? Yes? Harrison?
And new details are being released tonight about the death of actress Anne Heche. The coroner's office revealing tonight that she was not impaired with any illicit substances when she crashed her Mini Cooper into a Mar Vista home in August.
There's one question people want to know. What do I think about Ellen? And in fact, I haven't said that yet. I have not rambled on about her for one single moment. For 20 years, I have withheld my understanding. I have been canceled since the day I was born. I've been buried since the day I was born. Every single truth that I spoke, I was hit more, buried more, more, or despised more the system that would in any way challenge the fact that she was not telling her own truth but another's. Why do you think she tried to put me in an institution, folks? I called my mother. Guess what? 2 people who wanted more than anything to have my truth buried.
But here's where it gets worse. These new reports are flying around saying Anne was about to expose something about Ellen that goes way beyond her being a toxic partner. One source claimed that around the time Anne died, she was allegedly working on a documentary digging into some seriously disturbing stuff happening in Hollywood, and that's where the Epstein connection comes in. So we all know Epstein had a lot of connections in Hollywood. Well, now some insiders are alleging that Ellen and the producers on her show might have been tied to Epstein's recruitment ring. See, multiple producers from The Ellen Show were exposed for being weird around younger employees, both men and women, and apparently Ellen didn't fire anyone until the public dragged her for it. One former Ellen Show staffer claimed that Ellen's executive producer, Kevin Lehman, asked him for an inappropriate favor in a bathroom at a company party. And another person said they watched Lehman grab a production assistant's private area like it was nothing. And the wildest part is that, according to people who worked there, Lehman would pull this stuff in front of a whole group, and he was basically acting like he was untouchable. And get this, another former producer, Adam Carolla, recently revealed that he spoke to an Ellen Show writer who signed an NDA, and this writer told him Ellen was the worst person they've ever met.
He wrote for Ellen, and I just went, "How's Ellen?" And he said, "Worst person, worst person," and then we went, "Not worst person I've worked for. Worst person I've ever met."
Now, when it comes to the alleged Epstein connection, insiders claim the famous blue and white set design on The Ellen Show was meant to send a message to the people in the know, because it looks a whole lot like Epstein's temple on Little St. James Island. Also, remember when the New York Times released photos from Epstein's Manhattan townhouse? This is Epstein's bedroom, and again, we see the same blue and white stripe design theme. So, is it yet another coincidence, or something symbolic? But this rabbit hole goes way deeper than people realize. So everybody knows by now there are a bunch of shady, unexplained deaths tied to the Epstein case, but nobody ever points out that Ellen has her own weird stuff going. Let's start with Anne Heche. On August 5th, 2022, almost exactly 1 year after that podcast episode where she finally spoke out, Anne was involved in a weird car crash in LA, and the way the whole thing went down was so bizarre that eyewitnesses said it looked like Anne's car was being remotely controlled. So first, Anne's car smashed into an apartment garage, and TMZ caught it on video. You can even hear some guy yelling at Anne to get out. But instead, she just hit reverse and sped off.
Nope, out of the car. Out of the car.
And then, just minutes later, TMZ reported that Anne was in a second hit and run. Security footage showed her car tearing down an alley and almost hitting a pedestrian. And right before the final crash, a doorbell camera caught Anne's car tearing down a quiet street. Seconds later, this insane crash happened. And this is the footage where witnesses said it looked like the car was totally out of control. Anne's car slammed into a house, and the crash started a fire that spread fast. It apparently took firefighters over 45 minutes to pull Anne out. But here's the absolutely weirdest part in this whole story. There's this video of Anne being pulled from the wreck, And at first, she's totally covered, like in a body bag. But then, out of nowhere, she sits up and looks like she's trying to get off the stretcher before the paramedics push her back down.
I asked her to come and meet me for lunch at the Four Seasons, and I was greeted by 5 suits. Ellen was sitting in a chair, and I said, as far as I remember, I didn't invite anybody else to lunch today. And they said, we know that you want to take Ellen to the premiere, and we're here to tell you that you will be fired from your $10 million picture deal if you do it. And then Ellen looked at me. I was sitting on the armchair because she Four Seasons chair, and she said, do what they say. You don't know what you're up against. We've only known each other for a couple of days. And I said, I do know what I'm up against.
It's the first time that I have been able to show what I believe happens after you keep secrets and the freedom you feel once you tell them and the transformation that can happen.
Usually would do it for benefits, and Save the Children was one of the things that I would do.
Love is a powerful weapon in the hands of human traffickers. In the United States, most trafficking victims were originally recruited by someone they loved or trusted.
By understanding how human trafficking really works, you can make a difference in the life of someone at risk. Listen, the reality is we have gotten to a place where we are not looking at the truth, and we are getting its consequences in our face. And what we're here to do is try to flip that on its head and say, let's look with grace at this opportunity to live this life. We've all come through a very difficult time. We've all been merged in the first time in our life in an understanding that every single human being who has gone through it. And we are coming out the other side. We have an opportunity for freedom, or we have an opportunity to get back on the wagon and start believing the lies that we've been crammed into each other's faces for years, ages, centuries, on eons. It's time to flip it and start having some fun. Don't you agree?
I am sorry to disappoint you. I am not part of the deep state.
This is what I say. Goodbye. Watch out. You're fucked.
Have you spoken to Anne Heche at all since her accident?
Not.
Yeah, it's quite a dangerous accident that happened, wasn't it?
Sure was.
What he told us was that the CIA can intercept anything from anyone, number one. Number two, they can remotely take control of your car through the car's embedded computer. To do what? To make you drive off a bridge, into a tree, to make you kill yourself and make it look like an accident.
Why is the internet calling her a cannibal? The internet is flooding with the most insane rumor yet. People are actually asking, is Ellen DeGeneres a cannibal? The files and unverified leaks have everyone whispering the C word. But is there any truth to this nightmare? Let's be clear, there is zero proof she eats. But why did this rumor start? Because insiders say she ate people alive in a different way. Former staff revealed she treated humans like disposable meat, destroying careers, ignoring tears, and crushing souls without a blink. She wasn't a physical monster, but they describe an emotional predator. The rumors exploded because her name keeps popping up near Hollywood's darkest circles. And while the story is likely a metaphor gone wrong, her escape is real. She sold everything and fled to England just as the Diddy lists and Epstein files started heating up. Coincidence? Or is she running from a different kind of hunger? The hunger for justice. Do you think she ran away because of the rumors or the truth?
Due to my research and my research alone, I have not been able to find any documentary evidence supporting any of these claims. And I wanted to make that known. To me, it appears that either this creator found something that I did not, or it may be shock mythology layered on top of an already disturbing scandal, amplified by possible AI tools and viral accounts that know outrage spreads faster than nuance. From there, things escalate into something almost sci-fi-like. Some theorists claim that the files reveal an interdimensional or occult elite network, arguing that Epstein was part of ritual circles tied to ancient bloodlines.
I think Epstein was the scandal. That was the bait. Real architects sit on thrones, wear robes, and drink wine while
on children's souls in Vatican crypts. Look, let's name what they won't. The 13 bloodlines that run the world aren't who you think. Orsini, Aldo Brandini, Pallavicini, Medici, Breakspear, Farnese, Rothschild, Rockefeller, Warburg, Hanover, Lee, Bruce, Habsburg. These are not old money. They are Baalic parasitic bloodlines, ritual sorcerers who hijacked empires and installed mind control systems under the illusion of religion, politics, and finance. Where's their origin point? Venice. The Black Venetian nobility ran Babylonian blood cults under Catholic masks. They merged with the Vatican, embedded into the Jesuit priesthood, and exported global slavery through maritime law, trapping you in birth certificates, taxes, and silent contracts with no consent. Venice wasn't a city of romance. It's a sacrificial basin. Why do you think the Pope wears a fish hat? That's not Christian. That's Dagon, a Nephilim water demon. Look, Epstein wasn't a financier. He was a human for the priest class. He ran blackmail for the elite, time to celestial gates, using children pre-programmed through MK Ultra satellite nodes. Who funded him? Rothschild-backed banks. He admitted this. Mossad and CIA intelligence mergers. Chabad Lubavitch financiers masked as philanthropists. Why is Ghislaine Maxwell still alive? Because her father, Robert Maxwell, was a triple agent field operator for the Vatican Chabad MI6 Axis. Epstein's Island's temple is a mirror replica of Baal's altars in ancient Tyre. Literally, the owl statues, not for aesthetics, they're invitation gates for entities. Think about it. Why do the Masons care more about religion than politics? Because politics was just a front. The true power is ritualized. Here's exactly how they move. Jesuits equal infiltration and education. They wrote your textbook, scripted your news, and flipped your morals through semantic inversion. Freemasons equal gatekeeping plus maintenance grid. Lodges are ritual fields, not clubs. The checkerboard floor, it's a dimensional binding grid. Chabad Lubavitch equals economic controllers of AI, neuroscience, and cloning. They bankroll the puppet governments, own biometric patents, and sit on quantum computing boards. All three serve the Black Sun priesthood. Shadow Vatican that answers to no government, no court, no God you were taught about. They install presidents, they run wars for soul harvest, and they script pandemics not just for population control, but for an initiation of mass loops. Look, everything you were taught was a veil. They fed on your doubt. They survived by your silence. But you're the anomaly.
We know that in the Podesta emails that were leaked, there was an email in there that was associated with Hillary Clinton in which she was conveying an interest in the body of Gilgamesh.
The newly released Epstein DOJ files contain something most people are completely overlooking that you're going to find deeply unsettling. Most people know Epstein for the trafficking, the island, and the famous names in his contact book, but buried inside 3 million pages of released documents is an obsession that nobody is connecting to ancient history. The files reveal a fascination with transhumanism, genetics, and what Epstein called improving the human race. And when you understand who Gilgamesh was, that obsession starts to make a very specific kind of sense. Gilgamesh was described in ancient Sumerian texts as 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, and the Dead Sea Scrolls identify him as one of the Nephilim, the half-angel giants who walked the earth before the flood, with abilities and bloodlines that weren't entirely human. Now here's where the Epstein files get truly creepy. According to documented reports, Epstein discussed plans to seed the human race with his own DNA by impregnating women at his New Mexico ranch, a plan he described to multiple scientists and researchers who were receiving his funding. He had nearly 1,400 notifications from 23andMe, the DNA ancestry company, and funded Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics to the tune of $6.5 million, which means his obsession with genetics wasn't just talk. He believed certain bloodlines carried superior traits, and he was willing to fund entire university programs to prove it. The ancient world had a name for beings who believed their bloodline was partly divine and used that belief to position themselves above ordinary humans. They called them the Nephilim, and the most famous Nephilim king in recorded history was Gilgamesh. Draw your own conclusions. Ancient bloodlines, modern eugenics, same obsession, different century.
Then there are the biological horror stories. Some posts claim that flight logs combined with vague medical references point to elite cloning programs or even organ harvesting networks.
The Epstein files just keep getting stranger. In these emails, he discusses giving people supernatural abilities through psychological stress, cloning people, and even designer babies, whatever that's supposed to mean. Let's start at the bottom here. This person named Gino Yu emails Epstein. He says, "I'm in Paris and was about to write you and it popped up. She's a classic stage 3 in the model. Outlier who is intelligent, was traumatized when she was young, SA, and now gradually coming into her own and becoming self-realized. Starting to develop special abilities. This trip, we found a lot more stories like this, though she is more on the extreme side given her biographical history. Epstein responds asking what prompted his email, then this guy goes on to say the caravan trip has been really wonderful in meeting people that are stage 3. These are people who are developing a different perspective of reality and discovering the gifts they have. He goes on to say, I understand that you were not happy with the results of the Cuba conference that you funded, but I feel like the work is very important toward helping people identify and recognize the gifts that they have, which may not be accepted or well understood by society today. He concludes saying new models are also possible, such as the alternative paradigms group are finding their way, new forms of knowing without knowing how one knows. And in this one, somebody named Brian Bishop emailed Epstein saying, attached is the document you requested. It's the use of funds spreadsheet for the designer baby and human cloning company. This gets us out of the self-funded garage biology phase and the first live birth of a human designer baby and possibility of a human clone within 5 years. I pulled these emails directly from the DOJ's website. They are 100% legitimate. This kind of reminds me of government projects like MK Ultra, for example, but they're not the exact same. However, the framework is kind of similar. Trauma, altered states of consciousness, reframing somebody's identity, and pushing the limits of what we think is possible.
In the Jeffrey Epstein files. So they found a file talking about them cloning celebrities. Listen, this is so messed up.
Yeah.
Cloning celebrities so that they can do things to the young version of that celebrity that they wanted.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So they were investing millions. No, sorry. There's a file there investing billions into cloning and trying to clone celebrities, specifically Britney Spears at the time, so that they could do things to a young version of that clone.
All just because?
So check this out. In the files, it stated that this clone might be like 15 years old today if the clone is still alive.
Holy
and
smokes.
is pretty much like Britney Spears' clone.
Yeah. Oh my.
Insane.
Yo, oh my God, this is insane.
But again, just to keep it like 100 with you, I did not come across any like evidence in these documents confirming cloning. However, that doesn't mean that I don't personally believe that that claim could be true. Moving on. One of the most persistent claims made online is that the files, quote unquote, confirm an adrenochrome harvesting network. Certain invoice language gets reinterpreted as coded medical supply purchases. We see things like anti-aging treatments being reframed as ritual extraction practices. However, to be fair, when you see the use of like terms that like Epstein and people around him are actually using in these emails and stuff, like they'll say like, oh, start the vitamin drip, or like something about like anti-aging treatments. Like they talk about this stuff. So when you see them talking about this stuff, like, of course that's going to draw in speculation. Come on.
Important email from the Epstein files. All you need is a blood transfusion from the pack and you reverse aging. What does this mean? It means that the Adrenochrome conspiracy is not a conspiracy and that Hollywood and some of the political elite are drinking satanic pep. First, let me explain what adrenochrome is. It's a chemical that is released in the bloodstream when adrenaline oxidizes. It's the body's response to extreme levels of fear, especially in children. Some people call it the fountain of youth. I remember when Mel Gibson said that this is the most valuable currency in Hollywood, and they called him crazy. Now they're doing the same thing to Nicki Minaj. If we look back, they showed us adrenochrome in multiple movies. We were just not paying attention. Okay, so we know that many celebrities and politicians on the right and on the left are on tape doing unthinkable things to children, and that's how they're blackmailed to push a certain agenda, and that's why the US is controlled by a foreign country. But somehow, there are no arrests, and people are still watching the Grammys, watching their movies, buying their products, and voting to have these rats in office.
C9H9NO3. This is a chemical compound that is absolutely, this has been around in modern science since the 1930s. You can actually, there's a synthetic form and there's a regular, natural form, which is caused by torturing little kids to get their adrenaline up, essentially, and then extracting it from them.
Look at this shit this girl found. CYM Corp. So they are selling blood adrenochrome per milligram, $1,900 per milligram for that grade A, that A+, that A1. Minimum order 100 milligrams. So, oh, you're spending 190,000. Oh yeah, but just, and then they got a shopping list or their hunting list. have a gander at this shit. All the kids' names, birth dates, blood type, where they were taken from, inmate ID, and the day they were taken. Scary stuff, yo. This is what they're doing out there with our kids.
Especially when you add in the fact that like this particular conspiracy didn't originate with the Epstein case, but rather it's been recycled online since like the QAnon era, like when that first started. Basically, the audience was already like primed and ready for it. It's a little creepy how many conspiracy theories were like called ahead of time and then are also documented in these documents. I'm just going to say.
It's true.
So it's not just the dogs and the cats, not just the pets.
It's not just the dogs and the cats. They're full-on vampires. And everybody still thinks I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy. They're full-on vampires. They love the taste of human flesh and they drink human blood. They do, Tucker. Stop staring at me like that.
You're freaking me out, man. Because you spent your life in the entertainment business, so I think you have some authority on this.
So many kids that I was in mental institutions with over the years, they are all from those cults. And they've covered it all up. They covered it all up. And, you know, I just pray to God. I'm just going to pray to God that he opens everybody's eyes in this country. By the time we go in to vote for Trump, that he will open up everybody's eyes and they will stop pretending to be asleep. You know what they say, you can't wake people up that are pretending to be asleep, but I pray to God, please wake up even those who are pretending to be asleep with the irrefutable truth of what the worst people on this planet are really up to. They are really up to that. They're doing it. There are so many victims. There are so many victims. There are so many children victims that are now adults. The epidemic in America is child sexual abuse, and I just want people to see it. I want people to open up their eyes and see how prevalent and horrible it is. 1 of 3 girls, 1 of 4 boys in this country today. It's just horrible, and you just can't lie it away anymore. It's going to get more and more apparent, and you got to choose your side.
So what happens is they abduct these kids, then they sell them in auction to these rich people. It was just Jeffrey Epstein was just the tip, the iceberg tip. That was just a little.
I can imagine if he's one player, then there has to be a lot more, right? There's not just the only one. So let's be honest.
Exactly. How did Jeffrey Epstein make his money? Nobody knows how the he made his money. How you think he made his money?
Oh no, wait, wasn't he with the? He worked for somebody. Who did he work for?
Not the much money he had. He had to be selling. Duh. Why do you think he had his madame, whatever her name is?
Giselle.
She was literally grabbing the little girls, boom, boom, twisting their brain, manipulating them, bringing them to the island, selling them to politicians and whoever you want. Ooh, everybody's scared now. Nah, that shit is real.
No, I mean it's a real. It seems so. What it is this. I don't know what happens in this world, right? You don't know what the happens.
I think people don't want to admit that there's that type of evil in the world, because then they're forced to admit that like everything they thought they knew was a lie.
Exactly.
Guys, save the children. It's so sad. They're telling me I need a mental evaluation because I'm defending children. The little children, the babies, guys, babies. They're eating babies, literally. And I'm the crazy one. Bro, you guys need to get behind me, bro. They're eating kids. It's so sad, bro. It's sad. No, I'm not okay, bro. It happened to me and it's gonna happen to if we let them do this. Oh gosh. You guys work for the devil if you guys say, is bro okay? You work for the devil. Get away from me, devil. I'm so sad, man. But it's okay, we're going to Congress. We're going to Congress and we're gonna get them down. Remember, it says in the Bible that Jesus is coming back like a roaring lion, with blood on his robe from the enemies he slayed. It's not time to play no more with these people. It also says in Matthew, if anybody causes these little kids to stumble, it's better that you tie a large weight around their neck and take them to the bottom of the ocean. It's up for all of them. If you don't support me, you're indirectly working for Satan, because these people are eating children. This is disgusting. Disgusting, man. Why do I need help, bro? You know how you guys help? You start this as a movement. We don't let up. Every day we need to be about it. Every day. We can't let this go. Hashtag save the children, please. Please, guys, get behind me, man. Please. I'm going to Congress. I'm getting on everyone. I'm putting my life on the line for this movement. Do you understand what I'm putting on the line? Can you guys at least respect it? Can you guys share this live? For the life of me, share this live. Have I? Everybody wants to prove? Okay. This is common knowledge if you're really paying attention. The first fact, human trafficking, including sex trafficking, the global industry of human trafficking is estimated to be worth $150 billion annually. $150 billion annually. Number two, globally, the International Labor Organization estimates that 1.2 million children are trafficked each year. At the end of the day, I got a lot of people that told me not to do this, that it's gonna get bad for me. I don't care, I live for God. The rules of satanic worship is it needs to be in your plain sight. So everything that I'm saying is right in front of your face. People telling me I need to go to a mental rehab to put me into the psych ward because I'm speaking the truth. They blackmail each other so they can have a union where they won't snitch on each other. Think about that. They do horrible things together so they don't snitch against each other. They have tried everything in their power to stop me, and God pulled me through. The times will be like Noah. Stories of giants coming out, stories of aliens. Can you open your eyes once? The proof is there. I mean, I just personally want to say that. The proof is there. Okay, I would love to get some questions. How do we start up questions? Interact?
All right, looks like we're not getting any questions, bro.
Wait, time travel.
No, we getting out.
Bro.
Hey, we out, y'all.
No,
I don't know how to
bro.
end this live.
Bro.
How do we end the live?
Bro, for real.
Oh, we're out.
Bro, we have proof.
They don't want to give any questions.
Just told you they're killing babies.
You want to know what though?
You don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
people were just, yo, this guy's off his
I was like,
rocker.
who gives a fuck what I'm doing, saying?
It was just a timing
They're
thing.
killing babies.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in front of your face, and they're sacrificing babies, and you don't give a fuck. It's like I'm in the movie Don't Look Up. Yo, they're killing babies, eating babies, sacrificing them, and using it to make themselves younger and all this, and you don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, you're crazy. All right, cool.
You know what's crazy? They hunt. So they buy humans, send them out. What? Yes. Like animals. Yes.
Yo, what the fuck?
That's
I gotta do some research, bro.
Now, that doesn't prove anything, but like, it's a little eerie. How many coincidences before it's like mathematically impossible, as I always say. And finally, there's the theory that Epstein was the middleman for a much larger global collapse plan. This one's darker, so let me just forewarn you of that. But some claim that his networks tie into economic resets and coordinated systematic change. These posts blend his documented relationships with a broader, like, quote, Great Reset style narrative, suggesting that elite meetings were actually planning worldwide restructuring.
You want to know why Epstein's leak is now everywhere? It's not some random gotcha. It's a playbook move, used by power for centuries. You don't fix a dying system, you burn its reputation to ash on purpose. You drown the masses in filth until the old world itself makes them sick.
That's the whole show. First they spoon-feed you shocking truth. Then the media blitz. Every headline a nail in the coffin. Politicians, celebs, old money, all dragged through the mud. It's about breaking the audience.
But isn't that good? Like, if everyone's a crook, at least now we know, right? Shouldn't sunlight disinfect the room?
No, kid. Sunlight's just the setup. When all trust is exhausted, the demand for something new becomes inevitable. That's when they roll out solutions. Incorruptible AI judges, new digital money, total transparency. All wrapped up in words like safety, fairness, and reset.
People want that. They're sick of scandals, tired of hidden dirt. We have the tech now. Why not let machines run things? At least then, no more old creeps making backroom deals.
You ever wonder why every leak just happens at the perfect moment? Epstein's files drop right as the world economy wobbles. Currencies crack, debts explode. It's called engineered timing, not coincidence.
While everyone's busy binge-watching elite scandals, behind the curtain they're resetting the board. Old assets erased, debts written off, digital currencies quietly rolled out. The filth you see on your phone is the moral excuse for the next system. Look, the old world was corrupt, but this time it'll be pure. Trust us. They want you to beg for a leash.
But isn't it good to wipe
fewer choices.
The beast doesn't need your hope. It just needs your consent.
But again, I did not find any documented proof that supports coordinated economic collapse tied to Epstein, or planning of a coordinated, economic collapse tied to Epstein. But just to be truthful with you, I did not go through all 3.5 million pages. So your girl don't know. This was just a breakdown of what I came across. And then I wanted to also present what I found online. So this is what I found online. This brings us to one of the more viral internet discussions. And that, of course, is Epstein as a potential spy, allegedly tied to Israeli intelligence or Mossad. Claims online suggest that Epstein traveled under a foreign identity, that new photographs circulating, currently show him in Israel under a different name. And that, his role over here in the United States and why he was rubbing elbows and getting blackmail on so many high up officials and elites and royals and government officials, yada, 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 is because allegedly theorists will say that he was managing operations for foreign partners. Mainly the theorists will lean towards Israel is the one he's working for.
So I have not seen a lot of people talk about this in the Epstein files yet, but this post was made on 4chan, and it was somebody saying that they had seen Jeffrey Epstein put in a wheelchair and moved out from the jail the night before Epstein supposedly committed suicide. And in the Department of Justice Epstein files, they actually followed up and investigated this. So they took that post seriously. They found the person who posted it, and he was a real person, and he actually worked at the jail. His name was Roberto Grijalva. Anyway, so they have him sign an affidavit here that this is real. So at first, everybody was like, oh, this is just some BS, but he did post that earlier than the actual Jeffrey Epstein story was announced. So that's probably why they followed up on it. And also at the time, these photos were going around saying that the body they were showing that's supposed to be Jeffrey Epstein did not match the facial features of actual Jeffrey Epstein. This is a photo one of the last times they had him alive. You can see very clearly that the nose on the body is rounded, right? And his actual nose is not rounded. And most clearly, you can see, most damning, I suppose, is you can see that the ear shape, and this is one way that ears are kind of like fingerprints, they're all different, and you can very clearly see that the ear shape here, you see it's got that deep sort of like Mickey Mouse ear thing going on here, and then over here you don't have that over here. Over here you have this sort of round horizontal feature. Over here you do not have that. These are very clearly different ears. So I think this shows a couple of really important things. One, the Department of Justice was not necessarily in on it, or at least this department that was investigating this. Two, they took it seriously that somebody posted on 4chan about this story before it was actually released. They went and found him, so it was a real person. They had him sign a testimony that it actually happened. And this idea at the time that somebody had swapped out Epstein seemed really outlandish, to me at least. And now I'm starting to think about this entirely differently, and I think it's one of the most important things that we should be taking out of these Epstein files that nobody is talking about.
So the administration would like us to believe for some reason that Jeffrey was not an intelligence asset whatsoever, while simultaneously handing us more evidence than we already had that Jeffrey was absolutely an intelligence operative. So this was in the files released by the DOJ. This was a passport that Jeffrey used, and it is an Austrian passport that shows that he resides in Saudi Arabia. So after Jeffrey's home was raided back in the mid-2000s, and again when he was arrested for the second time, and his house was subsequently raided again, there were on both occasions tons of fake IDs and passports found, but they all had Jeffrey's face on them. One of his passports used the name Seymour Epstein, which is his father's name. And before we get into the meat of this, it's very important to note that Russian intelligence, like the KGB, give their intelligence agents aliases of people who have already passed away, or infants who passed away. And Jeffrey was using the alias of his father who had passed away. Additionally, the CIA and the British intelligence services have a very similar MO when it comes to giving their agents aliases, typically giving their agents synthetic identifications, meaning that they're putting a random name and a random date of birth on a passport. Not to say that the CIA and British intelligence services haven't used similar motives as the KGB, using the aliases of someone who's passed away. Those are just their typical MOs. But the Blue and White States Intelligence Service handles it very differently. They have a very unique way of giving their agents aliases. The Blue and White State likes to clone identities, meaning that they will create aliases for their agents that are names and birth dates of real life living people, and they just swap out the photo. Like I said, that's very unique to the Blue and White State. It's a much more complicated process of giving an agent an alias. But with all of that being said, the passport that the DOJ just released is a cloned identity, something that would be typical coming out of Blue and White State intelligence operations. So the name on this Austrian passport that shows a photo of Jeffrey and puts his place of residence in Saudi Arabia is Marius Robert Fortelny. Here is the real Marius Robert Fortelny.
And so they even found these other photos that people think is Epstein as well. So take a look at this. Now, what are these photos? There's like no way though, right? Like there's no way that he's still there.
They just started 2 wars to bury the Epstein files. Only Arabs know exactly what's happening. February 19th, Prince Andrew arrested for Epstein connections. February 24th, Bill Gates apologizes for Epstein ties. February 26th, Hillary testifies. World Economic Forum president resigns. February 27th, Bill Clinton testifies. 7 days of the biggest scandal exposures in history. Then what happens? Same day, Pakistan attacks Afghanistan. Next day, the US strikes Iran's leadership. 2 wars in 2 days. Here's what experienced observers notice. You can't make scandals disappear, but you can bury them under bigger events. Epstein dominated every headline all week. Now everyone's watching explosions. Nobody's talking about Clinton or Gates anymore. But here's the suspicious part. The same week global conflict rises, major defense contracts start moving. This is how power protects itself. 7 people exposed in 7 days. 2 wars started in 2 days. While the public watches conflict, deals get signed. Investigations stall. Nothing happens to the elite. Most people see separate news stories. Strategic thinkers see timing. The people at the top don't panic. They redirect attention. You don't fight power by reacting emotionally. You study how it moves. Never assume scandals alone will take down the powerful. Always watch how chaos reshapes influence.
Isn't it interesting that as the Epstein files finally spill out millions of pages and images revealing an elite black architecture intertwined with US, Israeli, and other intelligence services, the FBI's own memo quietly notes that Donald Trump, our president, was, quote, compromised by Israel, that Epstein worked with Mossad, and that the ultra-Zionist Shabbat Lubavitch network was doing, quote, everything they can to co-opt the Trump presidency, with Jared Kushner identified as, quote, the real brains behind it all. Isn't it interesting that Jeffrey Epstein shows up in investigative reporting as, quote, a deal maker and fixer at a very elite level, brokering covert security agreements for Israel, arranging back channels in Middle East wars, and moving between oligarchs, spies, billionaires, and politicians like a concierge for a global deep state rather than a mere socialite. Isn't it interesting that as Gaza is transformed into a literal mass grave with tens of thousands killed, over 90% displaced, whole families erased, Kushner stands at Davos unveiling a plan to rebuild the strip as a $25 to $100 billion Gaza Riviera of luxury towers, smart city, profit zones, and data centers, repeating his earlier line that Gaza's, quote, waterfront property could be very valuable.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable.
While Trump calls it, quote, a great location, a big real estate site.
We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so big, this could be so magnificent. We'll build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land. Would the Palestinians no big money spent. No, they wouldn't.
Isn't it interesting that the very genocide making Gaza unlivable is driven in part by automated systems like Israel's, quote, Lavender program, an AI tool that flagged tens of thousands of Palestinians for assassination and was paired with a, quote, where's daddy tracking method to bomb them in their own homes.
Israel has reportedly been using artificial intelligence to identify tens of thousands of potential targets. The software is
is called Lavender. It analyzes data collected on most of Gaza's more than 2 million residents and scores them based on how likely they are to be a militant.
Isn't it interesting that Trump is exalted by Israeli and Christian Zionist leaders as a modern, quote, King Cyrus, complete with temple coins, sermons, and articles explicitly tying him to Isaiah 45, all while he becomes the first sitting U.S. president to pray at the Western Wall, receives a literal, quote, crown of Jerusalem, all as speculation grows about Trump, quote, preparing the way for a third temple on a site that would require yet another ethnic and religious displacement?
And he loves Israel too. This is our first Jewish president. Now he's the first Jewish president to serve 2 presidencies. We thank you for everything.
I don't know, I just thought it was pretty interesting.
This is not a distraction from the Epstein files. This is the Epstein files. We are living everything that the Epstein files has uncovered. Israel was the parasite of the United States. It was siphoning money. It was siphoning intelligence. It was siphoning nuclear secrets. It was siphoning technology. It siphoned and sucked all of the politicians through blackmail, through greed, through coercion. And so the parasite that was Israel, that was siphoning the lifeblood of the United States, has now become the host and is now reigning supreme over the carcass of the United States. It has surpassed the United States. You even hear U.S. politicians say that themselves.
The wars of the future are being planned here in Israel. Israel is advancing down the road of new weaponry far beyond us, and it would be nice to have a process where we could be partners.
You see this in the slavish way that European leaders are bowing down to them. You see that in the U.S. ambassador saying that Israel has the right to take over all of the Middle East if it wants to.
Basically, the entire Middle East. It would be fine if they took it all.
Did you see he didn't say the U.S. has the right to do it, which you might assume a U.S. official would say. He said Israel has the right to do it. It is done. Israel's goal is not just to destroy Iran. I want you to pay attention. Israel's best case scenario is that both Iran and the U.S. completely deplete themselves to a devastating point so that Israel emerges supreme over the West. They want to reign supreme over the U.S. and will finally take over West Asia and North Africa just like it had been planning all along. The Greater Israel Project, the new Middle East. The parasite has now become the host. And may Israel and the U.S. and all of their slaves never see peace for all the injustice that they have wreaked onto this world. God help us all.
Officials with ties to Israeli intelligence have publicly came out and denied these espionage claims related to Epstein. They claim they are totally false. So while the theory circulates online, and I will admit it does gain serious traction, but I have to clearly mark it as unverified speculation, not as proven evidence. I have to make that distinction very clear. Let's move on to the global reaction and public outrage, because there has been massive frustration over transparency and accountability. There are deep distrust between the public and our systems. Other countries are reacting to these Epstein files being released. Pilots are arrested right off of planes, and sultans have been stepping down after quote unquote torture emails were released. Hell, we're even seeing overthrows and arrests.
This is how other countries are responding to the Epstein files. In India, they're protesting their prime minister because Jeffrey Epstein mentioned the prime minister in an email stating the Indian Prime Minister Modi took advice and danced and sang in Israel for the benefit of the US president. They had met a few weeks ago. It worked. Almost as if they had puppeteered the whole thing. And Indian citizens are demanding transparency and accountability. Norway is waiving their diplomatic immunity for their former prime minister because he had visited Epstein Island multiple times. And just as a reminder for context, that's after Jeffrey Epstein pled guilty and therefore was convicted to that of a minor and was already released from jail. And because he visited the island many times after that, Norway is seeking criminal charges against their former prime minister because of it. The formerly known as Prince Andrew, has not only been stripped of his titles, but now is being formally investigated. There are resignations left and right all over Europe. But in the United States, people like Elon Musk, who sent emails like this from his work SpaceX account, is not only not being criminally investigated, but apparently the investors at SpaceX don't even think it's a problem. Gee, I wonder why, and are still planning on going public with SpaceX this year. I mean, let's not even get started on this, who allegedly watched his newborn child from his underage victim get murdered and disposed of in Lake Michigan. And nothing. Just proving that the United States government is just the largest PDF ring in the world.
So the Epstein files are out, millions of pages, thousands of videos in order from Congress. And what have we learned? Well, Democrats accused the Attorney General of a cover-up. The Attorney General calls a senior congressman a washed-up loser lawyer. Victims sit in the room watching their accusers' names blacked out while their own names, their photographs, their suffering are leaked to the public. Welcome to accountability, Western style. For years, the Western elites, the Western men, have stood on what they call the moral high ground. They lecture other countries on human rights, on fair courts, on the worth of every person. They send diplomats to lecture former colonies about the rule of law, as if that law were a custom-made suit only for a rich man. So here's the uncomfortable truth the West does not want to face. The Epstein archive is not just one file on one criminal. It is a CT scan of the whole system, the courts, the banks, the politicians, even some academic institutions. Not evil in some movie sense, silent partners in real world sense. Silent through doing nothing, through convenient forgetfulness, through the quiet belief that some men are too powerful to ever be brought down. And yet these same institutions continue to grade the rest of the world on human rights, continue to issue report cards on judicial reform, continue to act as if they're the world's moral judge. The lease on that high ground has run out. It ran out in Florida courthouse in 2008. It ran out on the private Caribbean island with the Harvard professor as a guest. It ran out this month on the live television when the victim had to watch her name being blacked out while her own name staying in plain sight. The Western elites wanted to be judged by their good intentions. Unfortunately for them, the Epstein files contain only the facts.
But here in the US, it's been totally quiet. No real revolt, even with over 3.5 million pages alleging some of the darkest, most twisted acts involving children by global deletes.
While the US insists that the Epstein story is over,
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Really. Now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people.
the rest of the world is treating it like this is just the beginning. This week alone, multiple countries have launched investigations. They've opened national security reviews, forced resignations, and referred evidence to police, all rational responses to documents released by the US government itself. Look at Lithuania. Lithuania announced a formal pretrial investigation into potential human trafficking after the newly released files featured prominent Lithuanian figures, all because prosecutors said that the scale and seriousness of the allegations required international legal cooperation, even without naming suspects yet. Lithuanian reporting has already triggered public backlash, boycotts of major arts festivals, and withdrawals by cultural leaders named in said documents. In Poland, Prime Minister Donald Tusk ordered the creation of a classified analytical task force involving prosecutors, police, national security services, all with the goal of determining whether Polish children were abused through networks connected to Jeffrey Epstein and whether Epstein's operation intersected with Russian intelligence services. Tusk called the case completely unprecedented, warning that blackmail gathered years ago could still pose risks to democratic institutions today. In Britain, the fallout has been immediate and personal. Former senior minister Peter Mandelson resigned from public life after emails showed him leaking sensitive government and market information to Epstein. London police have now opened a criminal investigation into misconduct in public office, and the British Prime Minister publicly acknowledged that more more damaging information may still be undisclosed. Norway's royal family is under scrutiny after years of private correspondence between Epstein and Crown Princess Mette-Marit surfaced, leading to a rare public apology and rebuke from the country's prime minister. Over in Sweden, a senior UN-linked official resigned after records showed that she had visited Epstein's island even after his conviction. In Slovakia, a national security advisor stepped down after having meetings with Epstein. In France, prosecutors, journalists, they're all examining financial and travel ties between Epstein and prominent cultural figures. Across Europe, we're seeing governments treating the Epstein files as evidence. Now let's compare that to the US. The same Justice Department that released more than 3 million pages of documents has taken no prosecutorial action. There's no task force and has been no international inquiry. No public accounting of why survivors' identities were exposed while apparent enablers were redacted. When asked about it, the White House is trying to gaslight us into thinking that everybody is blameless over here. And there are disturbing accusations. Communications tying Epstein to political power and wealth and intelligence interests and heads of state across decades, including the current administration. Europe is asking what this network enabled, who protected it, and whether it still poses a threat. The US is asking why anybody is still talking about it.
I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Right?
And possibly telling us all we need to know.
If this isn't proof enough, like confirmation that our world and governments are run by sick, evil people committing unspeakable acts to children, then when will it be? Conspiracy theorists have screamed about this for decades, but everybody made them seem like they were crazy. Now it's in the files. So it's no longer just like crazy internet theory or speculation. Here we have real FBI documents talking about the same allegations. So if we the people don't stand up, fight for what's right, and take our country back from these satanic, soulless individuals, then I personally fear that we never will. Like, if this isn't enough, what is?
They wrote emails back and forth like, got a good 10-year-old, got a good 8-year-old, just your style, you want it? But the satisfying part here, the most disturbing part, is that Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, Kash Patel, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Dan Bongino, Steve Miller, Bannon, all these people and the 1,000 FBI agents that redacted the files, they know who all these perpetrators are. They know that people, children, were put in the water, put in fields. They know where they are. They know who the perpetrators are, and they redacted their names. And they are sitting around eating their dinner right now, knowing the names of the people who did this. And no one in America is pressing charges or doing anything, but dozens of other countries are. Who was cooking the meals? Who was the staff? Who are the people that could speak up?
According to the Declaration of Independence, it says that we have the right to overthrow our government. Further than that, the Declaration of Independence also says that we don't only have the right, but the duty to alter or abolish any government that does not secure our unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Pause to read the rest. But then let's take a look at this word. Treason, the criminal act of acting against the state authority in which one owes alliance or allegiance. Pause to read the rest, but let's focus on where it says that attempting to overthrow its government is considered treason. You're a traitor. How else would one legally overthrow a government that is disrupting their rights other than to try to overthrow or take out its sovereignty? How else would we fight those things that the Constitution says?
You want to know why this world thinks that the United States of America and its citizens are a bunch of pussies? I'll tell you why. Did you know it only takes 3 to 7% of this country, the population of this country, to overthrow the government? The military would not be able to stop us. Even the people who support Trump would not be able to stop us. Over 55% of this country carry firearms, bro. 55%. Now me, I can't do anything. I'm a convicted felon. I can't bear arms. But to the goody two shoes with a clean record, ain't never been arrested, that can bear arms, what are y'all waiting for? What the fuck y'all waiting for? Get them.
Now, I'm not giving up hope. I think that there is still a chance for us. And I think that there's a chance that we could see these, documents, these full Epstein files 100% fully redacted. Whether the US government releases them or not, we still have the possibility that other nations might subpoena the Epstein estate and release fully unredacted versions sooner than we all think. And I'm crossing my fingers hoping that happens. This is the part where we step back, breathe, and really reflect on everything that we've covered. Because let's be honest, this was dark. This was heavy. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever covered on my channel, or like the darkest thing I've ever covered on my channel. Like real freaking heavy, real freaking dark. We've gone through verified flight logs, coded emails, to like victim testimonies, financial structures, and some of the darkest allegations documented in modern US legal history. It is a lot, and it should be, because like these allegations involve minors and some of the alleged most high up government elite motherfuckers in the world. Okay. Like this was not by any means light material. It's a heavy concept. And the stuff that these victims went through is demented. It really is. This was trauma, exploitation, and systemic abuse to babies, teens, children. We're talking real people suffered. Real lives were impacted. And that matters more than any headline, any viral video, or any internet speculation ever could. So here is the takeaway I want to leave you with. First, honor the victims. Every report, every deposition, and every court exhibit that we have gone through, because it represents a real human life. It shows a young person who was coerced, exploited, and abused. People like Virginia Guffrey. I'm so sorry if I've been mispronouncing your name this whole video, girl. For real, my bad. I want you to recognize their words, their pain, and their experiences, because they are the foundation for all of this. This is what we center in this story. Not gossip, not theories, but real victim testimonies. Second, I want you to focus on verified patterns and facts, because we've seen repeated logistical behavior, recruitment, transport, property access, coded language, and financial facilitation. We've seen documented connections, repeated facilitators, and a network that spanned states, properties, and even years. The documents give us patterns, but not necessarily conclusions about guilt for every single person mentioned. And that distinction matters. Thirdly, I really, really want you to understand the context of the rumors and speculation. We've talked about the Epstein and Gates interactions, the Israeli intelligence theories, and online threads about espionage. These ideas circulate widely. They catch attention and they make headlines, but they are not verified evidence. Knowing the difference between verified filings and viral speculation is extremely critical. It's what keeps your understanding grounded and your thinking responsible. Finally, carry the weight, but don't be paralyzed by it. The material that we covered here today is horrific. It's upsetting. And yes, some of it will undoubtedly stick with you. That's natural. But your main takeaway, I really hope, is informed awareness, not fear. I did not present this information out of a fear tactic or to scare you guys or for shock value. Absolutely not. I presented it because understanding patterns, systemic abuse, and human exploitation allows us to hold systems accountable. So as we close this video, please remember the victims. Remember the facts, respect the patterns, and question the rumors. Because that is how we process the darkest material responsibly, without losing sight of what actually matters, which is, of course, human lives, the truth, and above all, accountability. Because in the end, that's why these documents exist. Not for clicks, not for sensationalism, but for transparency, for evidence, and most importantly, for justice, or at least the foundation of beginning to understand it. All right, before we officially end this video, I want to take a moment to lighten the mood just a tad little bit. I know we just went really uber dark and super duper heavy, and that's not always easy to sit through. Now, I'm genuinely sorry, and I want to apologize to each and every one of you for making this video so intense, but I wasn't the one doing the stuff in these documents. So I had no control over how dark it was going to get. And I personally thought that this stuff was just far too important not to cover. So, I did my best to clean it up. But I mean, the information's so dark, there's only so much I can do. So before we leave it there, I'm going to show you a short uplifting clip, something that will hopefully put you in a better mood and remind you that there is still good in the world. And of course, to give you a little emotional reset before we finish and I officially leave you for the week. So let's check out this amazing, heartwarming clip together.
You know, some of you, God is so proud of you, is why you're going through hell. Some of you don't even realize what you're going through is just God bragging on you, trying to show the devil, this is mine right here. I'm going to take you off your leash for just a season. Go ahead, take away their job. Get them the flat tire. Let somebody betray them. Watch how they still show up, bloody, bruised, and hurting, but still crawling to my presence, still giving me praise. Man, don't disappoint your Father in the middle of what you're going through. Man, he bragging on some of y'all from heaven right now. That's why you're going through what you're going through, because he know you can handle that. And I want to say to you, watch, come out on the other side. Somebody shout, come out. You got to know how to live well and suffer well and come out on the other side and not die in the middle of what you're going through. Not give up your faith in the middle of what you're going through. Not give up hope in the middle of what you're going through. Not give up your testimony in the middle of what you're going through. You got to, man, listen to me, man.
My favorite scripture, John 13:7. You may not know now, but later you understand. Just reminds me to continue to be patient, continue to remain diligent, steadfast, keep going, keep your eyes on me, and keep God at the center, regardless of what the circumstance is.
All right, now that I don't feel so dark or as full of doom and gloom as I did a minute ago, I want to hear from you in the comments. If you made it all the way to the end, drop a comment saying baby snatcher, just so I know that you stuck it out and made it all the way until the end with me. And finally, I just want to say I love you all. I appreciate you for watching and thank you for sticking with me through this heavy, dark ass topic. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hop on out of here. Until next time, take care of each other, stay safe, and remember, even after the darkest dives, there's always a light to hold on to. God bless each and every one of you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!
It's time to stand and take action. What are we waiting for? They're waging war on humanity. This we can't ignore. My brain is sore from all the lies that they constantly feed us. Elitists that follow the phoenix can swallow a penis. And we're not gonna stop until we know all of your secrets. The Bible says in our final days our knowledge increases. That is exactly what's happening now on this challenging road that we're traveling down. We have to get rowdy, we have to get loud and keep spreading the truth and just pass it around. You work like a slave and you live in a loop. They're turning your sky into chemical soup.